Chapter 831. If it's light, it's around 10 tons. Sai Lei gave a professional answer. Without saying anything, Tang Tian waved his hand generously. Refine more. Don't be afraid of spending money. We have money now. Only 100 grams. It's nothing. Tang Tian completely relaxed. Then you guys can refine more. Tang Tian, who was extremely tired, his eyelids became heavier and heavier, and after a moment, he started snoring. Finding the right method to refine is actually very easy. Sai Lei replied. That's right, the deadwood silver and star iron have been given to everyone. These two materials do not have a lot of saint crystals, but they can increase the toughness of the alloy. They are useless to mechanical saint weapons, but they can be used to upgrade the current mechanical spirit weapons. Tang Tian looked as though he was struck by lightning and stammered, 10, 15 grams? The captain of the city guards was trembling, suppressing the fear in his heart. He replied, reporting to Master, everything is prepared. There are 122 merchants in the city, offering all sorts of materials. We have gathered 580 tons of materials, and do not dare to hide anything. I hope that Master will let the old and young of the city go. The entire city will be grateful to Master. 580 tons. Sai Lei revealed a smile that Tang Tian was familiar with, causing Tang Tian to feel that something was amiss. Did you meet with any difficulties? Tang Tian asked anxiously. Maybe a new era is coming. The hottest news in the market was related to new materials. I heard that you only robbed one business in one city. Sai Lei's eyes lit up. We definitely cannot let them go. We cannot let a single city go. Do you know how much money that is? As long as we are able to create. Pai Pa added, Master, please do not just look at the amount of saint crystals. Although the other materials have low amounts of saint crystals, but they are able to raise our current fighting standards. The pressure on the front lines is not small. If we can strengthen the mechanical spirit weapons, our fighting strength will be directly raised. Is the leader of the bandits unhappy? Sai Lei's final goal was the mechanical saint weapons, mechanical spirit weapons for saints to use. Pai Pa reported to him softly. We are mainly releasing the deadwood silver and star iron. We can't digest so much material. Miss Sai Lei's main interest is in research. If we take out a portion of the materials and distribute them to everyone, we can strengthen the relationship between us and the mechanical engineers. In the future, Miss Sai Lei's studio would be more focused on research. As for the manufacturing ability, we will gradually delegate it to the various workshops. So to raise their standards and strengthen the relationship between both sides is the main focus of Three Spirits City's internal affairs. Hey, what's wrong? I still want to sleep? I believe you have a rough understanding of the situation. Sai Lei suddenly took out an instrument and threw it to Tang Tian. This is an instrument specially used to measure the concentration of saint crystals and materials. I just did it. Take them and use them. Remember to bring more back. Tang Tian's expression became dull. He had worked so hard and only obtained 15 grams of saint crystals. It could only be used to make 15 kilograms of super bronze. The corner of Tang Tian's mouth twitched, and he almost fainted. He was the only one who could go back and forth, which also meant that everything had to be transported by him alone. By relying on his own strength, he had emptied Arthur City's Wester Trader's warehouse, causing Tang Tian to feel that he was a human moving machine. Even though his body was inhumanly strong, he still collapsed from exhaustion after this trip. He had the Aquarius vase, which could greatly reduce the weight, but the quantity was too huge. Arthur City definitely has a spy. Is everything prepared? Tang Tian asked weakly. How can so many things disappear without anyone knowing? A mechanical saint required 10 tons of super bronze, which meant 10 kg of saint crystals. Pai Pa, who had just rushed over, covered her mouth and chuckled. Tang Tian was in a daze when Sai Lei directly dragged him away. The passion of the Three Spirits City's mechanical engineers was completely ignited. Yes, we definitely did not waste anything, Sai Lei said seriously. No. Sai Lei regained her composure and shook her head. In a daze, he saw the endless warehouses, the endless shelves, the endless mountains of metal ingots. And from time to time, There would be new news circulating in the market about who researched new alloys that were bought by the officials, who used new materials to create a mechanical spirit weapon that was extremely powerful and was bought by someone at sky-high price. Tang Tian was forced to open his eyes by the demonic voice. His face drooped and his eyelids drooped. Oh. Let me sleep again. As long as I finish sleeping, I will give you a new stone egg. No, too. Sleep? You're still sleeping at this time? Silei's excited and sharp voice almost pierced through Tang Tian's eardrums. Breakthrough. We have broken through. We are going to start a new era. Do you understand? A new era. The withered wood silver and star metal were the hottest topics in Three Spirit City. The world is too dark. Tang Tian, who was in a daze, nodded his head. I know, a new stone egg. The city guard's regiment commander's heart was trembling. That's right. This is a new era. Silei was completely excited and hysterical. Super Bronze. This is a brand new Super Bronze. As long as we have enough Super Bronze, we can create an unprecedented mechanical spirit weapon, undefeatable. We can earn so much money that our hands will cramp. Suddenly, he felt that his life was so dark. Pai Pa carefully covered Tang Tian with a blanket and quietly left. She had too many things to handle. Mechanical saint weapon. Tang Tian was completely awake. A crooked-backed figure, carrying a small mountain of boxes, walked alone in the darkness, one trip after another, without a single day or night. It's fine if it's expensive, Silei said. Just as Tang Tian heaved a sigh of relief, she changed the topic. It's just that it's more taxing. Saint crystals are commonly found in the sacred Saint Galaxy's materials, with different concentrations. With a bit of effort, we can purify them into extremely pure Saint crystals. The amount of Saint crystals required is very little, 100 kilograms of bronze. We only need to add 100 grams of Saint crystals. All the materials will only be purified to 15 grams. Tang Tian looked as though he had seen a ghost. The city guard's regiment commander looked at the warehouse that was so clean that not even dust remained, and the fear in his heart grew. It was as if the mountain of materials in the warehouse had vanished into thin air overnight. Not even a trace was left behind. Silei completely ignored him and continued to speak excitedly. Our current mechanical spirit weapons have energy pathways similar to meridians. But these energy pathways are extremely crude and simple. They can only make some simple energy circulation, and that is why it is hard for mechanical spirit weapons to gain the favor of saints. Saints and the energy of heaven and earth are already able to directly communicate. If they use mechanical spirit weapons, the mechanical spirit weapons will not only be unable to help the saints, but will instead obstruct the saints. But with this super bronze, it will be completely different. Energy can freely flow inside and will not be restricted at all. He finally understood what Silei meant by a new era. If the mechanical saint weapons could truly be realized, then it would definitely be a brand new era. 15 grams. Silei smiled. Tang Tian did not know how he was able to return to Arthur City. Tang Tian already had a bad premonition and asked cautiously, "Is it very expensive?" "Anyways, master, no matter what, do not let go of any materials. I beg of you." The machinist's pursuit of new materials would never stop. It's too hypnotic. 100 kilograms of bronze, 100 grams of Saint crystals. Tang Tian looked as though he was sleep-talking. How heavy is a mechanical spirit weapon? Silei took a deep breath. We have always been researching on the mechanical saint weapons, which are mechanical spirit weapons for saints to use. Now that the super bronze has appeared, as long as we have enough of it, we can create a true mechanical saint weapon. A mechanical spirit weapon that can be used by saints. This is a brand new era and has never appeared before. When the mechanical engineers wanted to buy from the market, they realized that no one took it out to sell. Some people tried to buy it from the officials, but were told that the two new materials were not for sale and would only be given out as rewards for missions. Hearing that they could earn money, Tang Tian finally sobered up a little. Super bronze? Don't fool me. Just because you added the word super, you can sell the stone eggs? She was extremely excited. We have already researched and created a brand new super bronze. Brand new. It has never appeared before. It is revolutionary. It surpasses any other bronze alloy that we know of. Do you know what this means? Tang Tian laid on the floor, not even wanting to move a finger. Tang Tian was also excited. Have you created it? Not enough super bronze. Silei said. Very quickly, the mechanical engineers who obtained the lesser amount realized that unknowingly, they had already used up the two materials. What does it mean? Tang Tian was confused. Taste better. He called everyone into the warehouse. All of the sacred Saint Galaxy materials have been purified. Silei said. Super bronze requires a special material, which is Saint crystals. Silei said seriously, Oh, that is the name I gave it. Tang Tian struggled subconsciously. Silei took a deep breath, resisting the urge to give him a kick, and explained, The materials that you brought from the sacred Saint Galaxy, we have specially analyzed them. They all have a similar characteristic. They have a high affinity with energy. Do you know what this means? Paipa bowed respectfully. Yo, your efficiency is fast. Tang Tian teased. I just finished moving, and you guys have already finished? Not bad, not bad. Seems like you guys did not slack off. How is it? How many Saint crystals did you purify? Immediately, the bronze hall was once again filled with people. Any mission that came out would immediately be taken down by someone. Everyone obtained different amounts of deadwood, silver, and star iron, but their enthusiasm towards the new materials was the same. The various workshops all started to research on the two new materials, trying out all sorts of formulas. The two new materials ignited the enthusiasm of the mechanical engineers in Three Spirit City. In the last urgent mission, almost all the mechanical engineers in Three Spirit City participated, so the distribution this time was for everyone. Chapter 832. Let's go. Tang Tian liked Bing's idea, but they themselves had many problems to resolve. For example, Zhong Li Bai's monster army. They needed time to adapt to the mechanical spirit weapons and to form a fighting force. It was not something that could be done in a day. Arthur City is just a small city. The rumors are too exaggerated. If you were to be with him every day, the feeling would not be too intense. But if he were to disappear for a period of time and appear in front of you again, you would definitely be shocked. Uncle, do you want to fight? When Magatama recovered, Sima Zhao's situation immediately changed. Flying, fighting, Magatama took care of everything. The rest of the people were still living in the abyss of suffering. The energy concentration in the White Fields continent was much higher than the Desolate continent, and the interference of energy on laws was extremely strong. The God Armor Army's training was extremely harsh. Tang Tian, who was in the God Armor state, was impartial, without any emotions. He was a true demon instructor. The high intensity and harsh training allowed them to maintain their formation flawlessly even when they had not fully recovered their strength. Is the news wrong? He waved his arms and shouted, Let's end this quickly. The group of bandits were extremely ferocious and cruel. Even the Western traders, a colossal organization, could not escape from their blades. It was rumored that Arthur City's blood flowed like a river. 9 out of 10 rooms were emptied, and the bandits killed for an entire 3 days before stopping. The lucky survivors all used up all of their family's wealth to save their lives. The wealth that Arthur City had accumulated for hundreds of years was wiped out just like that. Arthur City was silent for a moment, then erupted with cheers. Countless people cried tears of joy, hugging their heads and crying. Crane, as the commander-in-chief, Uncle, you are so irresponsible. I have misjudged you. But no matter, the flag that decides victory or defeat will definitely be carried by the godlike young lad. Uncle, can you still do it? I heard that you were oppressed very badly. You have to work hard, Uncle. Don't be beaten into a sieve. You will lose my face. The only thing that made him sad was that the Swift Army and Skull Unit had suffered heavy losses, even though they had contributed to the war. Suddenly, someone shouted, Rely on you? Ha ha ha. I will just admit defeat. This scene is too beautiful. I do not dare to look. The crazy young lad rushed forward. Oh my, where is this? Aya, Ling Su, where did I bump into you? Charge together. Aya, why am I lost again? I'm sorry, The war is over, but you're still lost. The young man, who looked like a god of war, let out a roar and punched down. If you knew Odin's background, you wouldn't have underestimated him. He served in the army for many years and was once under Lord Jaya's command. He had no choice but to retire due to injuries, the old man said in a deep voice. The old man declined to comment. The Western traders will not let this matter rest. The Western region is their territory, and now that someone has massacred Arthur City, if they cannot take down the other party, then the Western traders will be in danger. The Western traders will stop at nothing to get rid of the bandits. No matter how strong they are, it is only a matter of time before they are destroyed. Although Tang Tian was anxious, he could only suppress it. The 5 great generals held extremely high positions in the honorable Marshall continent, and Melissa had previously looked down on Ao Deng, who she had never heard of before, but upon hearing that he was once Master Jiaya's subordinate, she could not help but feel respect for him. As for safety, with him and Sima Xiao, as long as they did not meet a large-scale army, it would not be a problem. He's Master Jiaya's subordinate? Melissa was shocked. Yes, that's it. Laws do not exist in isolation here. Find that connection. That's right. That's the energy you need. A sun had fallen to the ground. The sudden blindness caused her heart to be filled with fear. Tang Tian muttered to himself, like a real bandit leader. There was no need to worry about the Southern Alliance. Tang Tian could place all of his energy there. He's just a guard leader. Why do you place so much importance on him? Melissa was surprised. Come on. I'm afraid you're not a spirit general. Everyone stopped what they were doing. A few of the more active individuals could not help but whistle. Robbing could be addictive. After exchanging blows with Uncle Bing for half an hour, they finally stopped. From the looks of it, Crane's situation did not seem to be looking good, but everything else was fine. The young man in the sky raised his fist, which was enveloped by a regiment of bright light. The bright light aura shone on the young man's sculpted face. The cold and unyielding light image contained an indescribable power and beauty. His strong and sturdy body bathed in the snow-white light aura, as though he was clad in a light armor. But the white light came and went quickly, as though in the next second, the white light retreated like a tide, and his vision gradually returned to normal. For some reason, although he was angered half to death by Uncle Bing, but Tang Tian's mood was extremely relaxed. The tiredness of the past few days had been swept away. He could not help but clench his fists tightly and shouted to himself, "Hey, godlike young man, do your best." Sima Xiao laughed. He found it interesting. Magatama, let's go. On the other hand, Tang Tian was not worried about the God Armor Army. They only needed time. Regardless of how one looked at it, everyone was already working hard. Suddenly, an alarm sounded out in front of them. No wonder. The wind whistled. It was like thunder. Tang Tian was not worried about little Crane. Crane's willpower was strong, and a small setback was not a problem for him. As for Ling Su, who was lost, he could only depend on his luck. Jizhe and the rest were not used to it. It was just a mere 200 people, but the power displayed by them caused Melissa and the rest who had just rushed out of the cabin to have a change in expression. Tang Tian also laughed. For the sake of reaching Red Soil City faster, they had chosen a straight route and did not stop at any other cities, and naturally missed the chance to sweep the other cities. Sima Xiao looked at Tang Tian, who was patiently guiding everyone, and his eyes flashed. The current Tang Tian was much more mature than before. This fellow's growth had always exceeded everyone's expectations. Sima Xiao watched leisurely as Tang Tian guided the rest. His tightly clenched fist suddenly lit up with a dazzling light aura. Tang Tian was in high spirits, and everyone soared into the sky, disappearing into the horizon. Do not be disturbed by the energy. Once you get used to it, you will feel that you are wrong. A beautiful woman couldn't help but mutter to the old man beside her. She was about 17 or 18 years old, had soft golden hair that draped over her shoulders, and wore a white lace princess dress. She was virtuous and quiet, and only her bright eyes revealed a trace of shrewdness and capability. It is obviously Crane. That's true. Melissa nodded her head, but the look of schadenfreude on her face did not diminish. but there is a show to watch, and it will not be so boring. But such powerful bandits, where did they come from? But at the moment, their priority was the warship. The training for the past few days was not in vain, although Zhe and the rest had not fully recovered their fighting strength, but they had touched the threshold and had recovered about 30% of their fighting strength. I hope they're fatter. Walking to the deck of the transport ship, the old man's face was slightly pale. A group of black dots were flying towards them at an astonishing speed. Even though Dooku had solved the problem of laws and energy in theory. But the theory was beautiful, but the reality was cruel. The environment that they were used to for decades had completely changed. Regardless of whether it was the body or the mind, they needed time to adapt. Melissa was enlightened. The close relationship between the Western traders and General Go Chung Wundao was not a secret among the higher-ups. Currently, Master Go Chung Wundao was the main attacker of the Southern expedition, but his progress was slow, and he was suffering setbacks everywhere, causing many of the higher-ups to be dissatisfied with him. Yes, I wonder what kind of condition Jonathan offered to actually be able to recruit such a powerful general. The old man sighed. Although Ao Deng was injured, but he is experienced. The guards that he trained up are not large in scale, but their fighting strength is extremely astonishing, and the bandits and roving bandits that were wiped out by them were all infamous. Who knew that they would be completely wiped out? Ao Deng and Jonathan were both killed. This bandit group's fighting strength is truly shocking. Melissa was rejoicing in their misfortune. Who asked the Western traders to be so unbridled? Now they have kicked an iron board. The sharp alarm immediately caused the entire fleet to be in an uproar. The group of people shouted out continuously. Following closely behind Tang Tian, they pounced down like eagles. The old man's face revealed a trace of seriousness. He shook his head. Melissa, do not look down on this group of fierce people. Arthur City is truly not big, but the Western traders' power there is not small. The person in charge of the place should be Jonathan. He is greedy, but extremely crafty. The strength under him is not to be underestimated, especially the leader of the guards called Ao Deng. In military terms, the most difficult period was over. The current Southern Alliance was gradually adapting to war, and the potential of the internal war was constantly being filled up. I'll go take a look. Melissa anxiously rushed out. The old man could no longer sit still. He stood up and walked towards the deck. Without warships, the Null Division was practically barren. That was why Tang Tian did not follow Sai Lei Pai Pa's request to sweep through the various cities, but instead traveled day and night, using his fastest speed to rush towards Red Soil City. The Southern Alliance's situation was better than what he had expected. Although they were still in a passive position, and Crane was beaten up badly, but in the overall situation, they were slowly regaining their disadvantage. Melissa saw a scene that she would never forget. There's a trading group below. The old man seemed to have thought of something and said indifferently, the Western traders have made many enemies in the past few years, most probably seeing that Master Go Chung Wundao's battle situation is not going well. Some of them are becoming restless. Outside of Arthur City, everyone had gathered. The news of Arthur City being ransacked by a group of ferocious bandits spread like wildfire in the White Fields continent. Tang Tian, who was flying quickly, suddenly took a deep breath, and a surging power surged in his body. The light aura was extremely dazzling. The moment it blossomed, the entire place turned white, causing Melissa's vision to be enveloped by the white, causing her to be unable to see anything. Use the power of the physique. Did you forget how to activate your law threads? Do you have the face? Who gave you the confidence? Also, who said that I was beaten into a sieve? What nonsense! Chapter 833. The needle of the measuring instrument immediately changed direction. Fu Zhengji and the rest's gazes became unkind. The Sin Domain was originally a chaotic place, where robbing was a common occurrence, and they had seen many fights to the death. In their eyes, the master's actions were as gentle as water, like an angel. In the Sin Domain, if the bandits did not manage to snatch any money, Killing people to vent their anger was the lowest standard of professionalism. The old man knew that something bad had happened and immediately begged, "Masters!" What a joke! Enjoying everyone's worshipping gazes, Tang Tian immediately became pleased and waved his hand. Let's go, let's go. Time is precious. It was as though countless of lightning had descended from the sky, causing Tang Tian and the rest to be stunned in their positions. Melissa looked at her grandfather and said timidly, "Blood tear gem." What a joke! The amount of Saint crystals contained in one blood tear gem was equivalent to so many materials. Ignoring the fact that it was a waste to use the materials to extract Saint crystals, just the fact that the young lad was moving them around like a dog was something that had to be exchanged. Among the ordinary materials, the concentration of Saint crystals was extremely low, and Tang Tian had moved an entire warehouse of materials and only managed to extract 15 grams of Saint crystals. It was an entire warehouse, and for him to use the Aquarius bottle to move it and still be exhausted, the amount was unimaginable. I've changed my mind. Tang Tian pointed at Melissa shamelessly. I will use the blood tear gem to exchange for her. Tang Tian suddenly cut him off and pointed to the pendant on Melissa's neck. Bring it over. Tang Tian's face was as black as the bottom of a pot, and his tone was unkind. The entire fleet was turned upside down by him, but he did not see much money, nor any ores or anything of the sort. Thus, he maintained a low profile, although he wanted to befriend the other party, but he knew that experts were temperamental. If he was not careful, it would not be worth it to bring about a fatal disaster. If I want to know the other party's background, I have time to slowly investigate. Melissa was startled. No one had ever revealed such a look of disdain in front of her. Since young, regardless of where she was, regardless of when, everyone in front of her would always be filled with smiles, with a look of care and concern. Melissa was immediately awakened by her grandfather's shout, but for some reason, the grievance in her heart surged up, her eyes turned red, and she started to cry. If they were real bandits, would they not kill a single person if they did not rob the money? He was actually despised by someone. The old man heaved a sigh of relief, but he did not show it on his face. How many do you need? Wait, I don't like him. That disgusted expression on his face. He was also shocked by Tang Tian's stunning punch. No, it should be said that he was shocked. He had seen much more than Melissa, and had seen countless of powerful martial artists, but he had never seen anyone who could unleash such a terrifying fist. Melissa blurted out in a rush, "Why are you so poor?" Tang Tian took the pendant. It was a red gemstone that was as red as blood. It was extremely beautiful. Holding it in his hand, Tang Tian felt an indescribable fluctuation. He suddenly thought of something and took out the measuring instrument that Sai Lei had given him. Endless blazing white light swept across the vast wilderness in an instant. Tang Tian was furious. Master is magnanimous. Melissa did not mean to offend Master. It is just that she has been spoiled since young. Melissa, why aren't you apologizing to Master? The old man spoke sternly. She had seen many legendary famed generals, and had seen armies with outstanding military achievements, but she had never seen such a terrifying individual's power. It was extremely crude and direct. It did not have the dazzling and complicated transformations of an army, but it was extremely shocking. When a light aura blossomed, you would forget to breathe and forget to resist. Unknowingly, Melissa's face was flushed red. Since young, she had never suffered such humiliation. Not only was she scolded for being poor, she was despised, and was even called ugly. She clenched her fists tightly. The face in front of her was extremely hateful, an unprecedented level of hatred. Crazy young man, go, 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 oh my, where is this? Oh my, Ling Su, why do we bump into you? Let's go. Oh my, why are we lost again? I am sorry, the war is over, but you are still lost. The other party definitely did not see clearly just now. Melissa did not feel any disgust. It was the same for her. Even now, she was still immersed in the incomparable shock and was unable to extricate herself. What material is this? Tang Tian raised the red gemstone pendant. 100 of them. Tang Tian thought for a moment. Since it was a gemstone, it would definitely not be cheap. To them, Melissa's appearance was absolutely flawless. She might not be the most beautiful woman in the world, but she definitely had the qualifications to be considered as one of the most beautiful women in the world. A total of over 3,000 tons. Melissa was stunned by Tang Tian's words. The godlike young man's mood was not good at all. Facing the earth-shattering fist, the courage of the entire fleet was like snow under the blazing sun, melting away without a trace. Melissa could see respect, worship, and even flattery on the faces of the brave and upright members. In Crazy Tang's world, there are only two types of women, Chie and other women. The word beautiful only belonged to Chie. As for other women, who cared if they were beautiful or not, they were not as beautiful as Chie. Tang Tian's eyes opened wide. The blood tier gemstone was an extremely expensive gemstone. It had an alluring blood-red color and was loved by many women. Thus, it was worth a fortune. The old man had never heard of the blood tier gemstone having any other value. Stop right there. Beautiful? Tang Tian looked at Ji Zhe with disdain. You call this beautiful? Ji Zhe, watch your taste. Don't throw my face. Boss, a thief will not leave empty-handed. If you don't have money, you can only pay with your body. Ji Zhe snickered. This girl looks rather fresh, so beautiful. The old man and Melissa's expressions became strange. After hesitating for a moment, Melissa asked, Master, are you preparing to go to Red Soil City? Ji Zhe was not a good person. In Sin Domain, he was an infamous, A-grade infamous man. The figure that was like a god of war, with a cold and unyielding aura, occupied every corner of her mind, causing her to lose the ability to think. Between the heaven and earth, it was a vast expanse of whiteness. But when Tang Tian and the rest robbed, the old man quickly calmed down. Melissa was surprised by the collapse of her idol, but the old man was not. Forget about robbing. Even if the other party had weird fetishes, he would feel that it was normal. Geniuses were always different from ordinary people, and this difference would be reflected in all aspects. It was normal to have weird fetishes, but not having them would be abnormal. Hurry up and gather the blood tier gemstones, and find us at Red Soil City to exchange for her. Tang Tian grabbed Melissa and prepared to leave. On average, it was 5 in a billion. He immediately bellowed, Melissa, don't be impudent. What's with your expression? You're so poor, and yet you're so proud? You're wasting everyone's time. Do you understand? Being like this, you're truly insincere. But when Melissa shouted, Stop, right there, the old man's scalp went numb. He knew that something was amiss. The old man's face changed from the start till now. He had not said a word, and was secretly observing the group. Ji Zhe and the rest were stunned by Tang Tian's tone. Melissa's tears fell. Ever since she was young, her grandfather had never scolded her like that. But she knew that her grandfather was doing it for her own good, and spoke with a sobbing tone, Master, I'm sorry. They had followed Tang Tian for a long time, and understood Tang Tian well. The master's tone was resolute and decisive. He was extremely cocky. Oh no, he was extremely confident, and it came from the bottom of his heart. Melissa awoke from her reverie. Wait a minute. Robbing? Ji Zhe squinted his eyes. He looked at Melissa with a cold gaze and pretended to tease. Maybe it's because Master did not touch her. She noticed that the other party's gaze landed on her face, as though he was sizing her up. Melissa puffed out her chest and raised her chin. She was extremely confident in her looks. She had seen countless of young talents, and, as long as she smiled, they would be willing to do anything for her. But Red Soil City is not in this direction, Melissa said weakly. It was a large charred pit with a diameter of over 2 kilometers, emitting black smoke. The edges of the pit had traces of high temperature, as though it was made of glass. Descent of the God of War. After not obtaining any benefits, the other party muttered a few words, and then gave up, confirming the old man's judgment. That fist had completely broken his understanding of strength. Such a powerful attack should only appear in an army, and not an individual. Melissa did not know that the same feeling as her had appeared in the old man's heart. From the importance the other party placed on it, the secret inside was definitely not ordinary. The feeling of her idol collapsing caused Melissa to be in a daze. She looked at Tang Tian in a daze. His face is still the same, but the godlike light aura has disappeared without a trace. Why does the face in front of me look so hateful? Could it be that there is a woman more beautiful than the one in front of me? Everyone looked at Tang Tian with gazes of worship. Master is truly the master, our idol, our role model. Jize did not wait for Melissa to speak and moved the bewitching blade in his hand. Tang Tian immediately regretted it. Damn it, I asked for too low a price. Tang Tian, who was dumbstruck, his face turned green and white. His mind could not help but think of Bing's ridicule. Melissa only felt a gust of wind blowing past, and the pendant on her neck disappeared. No problem. The old man agreed without hesitation. That's right, Tang Tian said as a matter of fact. After an unknown period of time, the colors in the sky slowly recovered. The sound of the wind slowly entered his ears. Tang Tian was confused. He turned and asked Jize, I did not touch her. Why is she crying? Saint Crystal concentration, 0. 2%. Melissa's face was pale white. She finally understood how wrong her actions were. Her so-called arrogance was not even worth mentioning in front of absolute power. Her heart was filled with regret. She did not care about her own death, but she had implicated her grandfather. Could it be that the blood tear gem holds some secret that no one knows about? His mind was more on the measuring instrument. What did the other party measure on the blood tear gem? He acutely sensed that it was the crux of the matter. Could it be that Master's old lover is a peerless beauty? Disdain? He replied straightforwardly, because the other party's tone was equally resolute. Although the blood tear gem was expensive, but compared to protecting Melissa's life, it was nothing. After struggling for half a day, he gave up on raising the price. The godlike young lad's spit was a nail. The powerful martial artist in front of me, who looks like a war god, is actually a bandit? Tang Tian truly did not think that Melissa was beautiful. The most beautiful person in the world was Chie. Compared to Chie, all the other women were not beautiful at all. Under the explosive attack, all the sounds were extinguished, all the colors were extinguished, and only the endless blazing light and the fear that seeped into his bones remained. Melissa was filled with confidence. She was waiting for the other party to become absent-minded, waiting for him to be conquered by her beauty. Chapter 834. That is the Western traders. The captain shrugged his shoulders. Anyways, take note of them. There are roughly 200 of them. One of them has an extremely powerful female spirit. She is extremely beautiful, but cold-blooded and emotionless. There is also one who wields a curved blade and has a bewitching aura. But Sydney was not a rash person. He had obtained a lot of information regarding the bandits in Arthur City, and his eyes revealed a rarely seen serious look. In the desolate and fertile land, no one could shake the rule of the Western traders. Melissa had never seen such bandits before. He hesitated for a moment, then said, It is as though their strength was sealed, and then slowly awakened. Just at that moment, the bandits who were training suddenly stopped. It was the first time in the past few days that they stopped training. Melissa did not have much resentment towards being forced to head to Red Soil City, as strength was the most important thing. It was the same no matter where they went. Previously, she was young and ignorant, and had almost caused a huge disaster, causing her to become much more clear-headed and completely retracted her young mistemper. She had already mentally prepared herself. Even if she had to suffer a bit, it would not matter. Even her grandfather respectfully invited them to rest on the boat. Tang Tian's hearing was extremely powerful, and he could clearly hear the conversation between Melissa and Johnson, but did not stop them. Although he wanted to test the strength of the honorable martial army, but thinking about the Null Division waiting for the warships, he dispelled the thought. Contrary to the solemnity of the guards on the deck, the bandits not far away were not solemn at all. On the contrary, they looked very disheveled. Their faces were covered in sweat, their bodies were covered in mud, and their fermented bean curd was dirty. The messy group sometimes made people think that they were a group of refugees. The bandits' movements were comical. they stumbled and bumped, sometimes sinking and sometimes floating, as though they were children who had just learned how to walk. And if a conflict were to occur, they would definitely be implicated, and the most likely outcome would be for the bandits to become angry and kill them. She immediately said softly, "Let us go and negotiate with them, and not let them start a conflict." Noticing the movement, Melissa and Johnson quickly noticed the fleet that appeared in the distance. It was a standard military transport ship, and the size of the fleet indicated that it was an army. Melissa saw that the formation of the bandits had started to change, and Melissa, who was already familiar with the bandits, tensed up. She sensed a trace of danger. Johnson's tone was filled with worship towards Tang Tian. He continued, "As for the laws and their training, this subordinate does not understand. But after observing them for the past few days, their strength has improved extremely quickly. They give this subordinate a strange feeling. Is that how laws are used? How many times have I said it? Have you decided to be stupider than Amory?" His gaze once again landed on the map of the White Fields continent. His gaze once again landed on the map of White Fields continent. That unlikable youth was always walking back and forth in the group, constantly roaring like thunder. They could hear him clearly, but the content was hard to understand. The majestic and angry voice still lingered in his ears. Sidney quickly regained his focus and glanced at the soldiers around him. Everyone's morale was good, and he showed a satisfied expression. Long-distance raids had never been an easy task, but the mission was urgent, so the Lord had given them the best transport ship to use, sparing them the pain of running around. That's right, Sidney had restraining fear, but he was not afraid, as the Western traders held great power in the honorable Marshall Continent's western region. This was something that the other aristocratic families could not imagine. The enemy might be stronger than the Western traders, but they had chosen to fight in the White Fields continent, and that was their most fatal mistake. There were about 200 of them, all beautiful female souls wielding demonic swords. According to the intelligence, the possibility of encountering the bandits here was very small, but out of caution, Sidney still sent a small team to investigate. The Western traders were never stingy with money, and everyone liked to interact with them. For example, in this mission, if they were able to kill the bandits, the Western traders would definitely reward them handsomely. Thinking of this, Sidney could not help but feel a little warm in his heart. A few small black dots were flying in their direction. He suddenly lowered his voice and said, "A few of them are very strong." A strange, deathly silence suddenly descended upon the place. But the group of bandits in front of her, from the moment they met, had been rushing and training for 3 days and 3 nights without stopping to rest. But what shocked her was that not a single one of them had boarded the ship. Hoping for bandits to reason with us is too naive. This subordinate is just making an example. Johnson felt that he was thinking too much and continued, "Strength cannot be sealed, but their improvement is extremely fast, and it is truly inconceivable. This subordinate has noticed that the number of people that they can control to fly has already reached half. And what is even more strange is that once these people grasp the ability to fly, their strength will increase exponentially." The captain who came to investigate was surprised. Why would Mace Field Tradings appear here? But his expression relaxed. Although Mace Field Tradings was not as strong as the Western traders, but it was still a large-scale trading organization with a reputation. Melissa was stunned by her own conclusion. It was not only her, everyone on the ship were completely stunned. The captain inspected Melissa's documents and finally relaxed. "We are the Ratchet Army and are here to investigate the Arthur City Massacre. If you discover any suspicious people, please immediately report to us." Sidney even knew that his own commanding officer had an extraordinary relationship with the Western traders. Even he himself would receive a generous gift from the Western traders every year. Strength could be sealed. Melissa was dumbstruck. It was the first time she had heard of such a thing. His gaze swept past G-Zay. Ever since the bewitching man had gained control to fly, it was as though he had suddenly become enlightened and became extremely dangerous. Occasionally glancing over, it made Johnson's hair stand on end. Arthur City Massacre. When did laws become so rampant? I don't care who they are or where they came from. I just want to see their heads. He definitely gained enlightenment on laws. Johnson muttered, without gaining enlightenment on laws, it is impossible for him to unleash that fist, and his enlightenment on laws has already reached an extremely profound level. I have never heard of such a powerful martial artist. The armies of the various continents in the Western region had countless connections with the Western traders. The armies would help the Western traders to quell conflicts or send armies to escort the Western traders' transport fleets. It was a common occurrence. Sidney was not stupid to be able to possess such a powerful spirit general. He definitely had a huge background, and it was best for him not to provoke him. But the commanding officer's meaning was clear. Regardless of where the enemy came from, he only had one mission, and that was to kill the enemy. That's right, the word laws appeared the most frequently, to the point that Melissa could not comprehend it. In Melissa's impression, laws was definitely a high-end professional term, and only the peak martial artist would be related to it. The more he understood the bandits, the more he felt that they were unfathomable, and the more reverence he felt in his heart. At the start, he still thought that there was an army that could save them, but very quickly, he dispelled that laughable thought. Just based on what he had seen in the past few days, he knew that no ordinary army could contend against them. As for the elite armies, they were definitely not people that they could invite. The captain thought that the two of them were still immersed in the fear of Arthur City, and warned them, if your trading organization discovers any people with these characteristics, please go to any city and report the news to the city lord. Too slow. Too slow again. Using laws to control energy. Although Jonathan was greedy, but his subordinate, Ao Deng, was a relatively outstanding military general. Sidney knew himself, if not for Ao Deng being injured, he would definitely not be Ao Deng's opponent. But even if Ao Deng's strength was affected, his awareness and experience were still present, and the bodyguards that he had trained were not ordinary soldiers. Johnson welcomed them and shouted, "This is Macefield Trading's young Miss Melissa. Who are you?" "Master, there is a fleet of ships ahead." Melissa was surprised. "I have heard of the tragedy in Arthur City, but I never thought that you would arrive so quickly." Melissa and Johnson almost wanted to turn and run away. She also asked the leader of her guards for advice. Although Johnson's strength was not as strong as the young man, he was still a rare expert. Furthermore, Johnson was experienced and knowledgeable, and was a steady person. Melissa and Johnson looked at each other. The two of them could see the shock and fear in each other's eyes. But they were all killed by a spirit general. Melissa's face revealed a look of shock, but quickly disappeared. From this point, they seemed to be the most typical type of bandits. They were fierce and cruel, but always revealed an undisciplined aura. A group of lunatics that caused people to fear. Regardless of whether it was raining or windy, the group of bandits persisted in moving forward. At the start, Melissa thought that they would not let go of their ship, but after that, she realized that they seemed to be undergoing some sort of unique training. Sidney understood the severity of the situation. Sidney was also shocked by the ruthlessness of the enemy, but he was even more shocked that they actually dared to provoke the Western traders. How long has it been since such a powerhouse has appeared in the honorable Marshall Continent's Western region? In a vast and desolate Western region, no one dared to go against the will of the Western traders. Melissa stood on the deck and stared at the group of lunatics outside the ship. That's right, in her eyes, they were a group of lunatics. And they're a group of bandits that can't even control their flight properly. The captain of the bodyguards beside her did not conceal the respect in his eyes at all. Her grandfather had specially run over with a serious face and warned her to not anger the group of people. What the guards around her liked to do the most was to watch the bandits train on the deck. The comical earthquake would occasionally cause them to chuckle, but most of the time, the deck always maintained a solemn and quiet atmosphere that caused people to revere. Master is not angry about Arthur City being robbed, but the Western traders being robbed. Clan Elder Jonathan was killed. All of the Western traders' guards in Arthur City were killed, and their warehouse was emptied. When the scouts came to report, Sidney's expression was calm, sent a few people to investigate their origins. Johnson knew that it was not a misperception. He had rich experience in battles, and his intuition towards danger was not something a recruit could compare to. Chapter 835. The old man's face became extremely gloomy. No, they truly want to fight against the Ratchet Army. Sima Xiao did not forget how Tang Tian stepped onto the throne, how he won battles after battles, and how he won battles after battles. But what made Sima Xiao startled was that he actually felt a sense of loss, as though he was regretful that he did not participate in the battles. Plop. Melissa, Johnson, and the rest could not help but think about the shocking fist, the terrifying scene of the sun crashing into the ground, as though it was the end of the world. The weaker guards were all pale, and their legs were trembling. In that moment, it was as though they saw a pair of indifferent eyes that resembled a god, an extremely intense pressure enveloping the entire place. Is there a problem? Sima Xiao looked at Tang Tian and said, I have no objections. They had just left the Sin domain and had never fought with a Sacred Saint Galaxy army before. Thus they were filled with curiosity towards the Sacred Saint Galaxy. Adding that they had a breakthrough in their training, they became even more restless. Furthermore, the group of killers had just ransacked the Western Traders' warehouse, and their equipment would most likely be better than standard armies and would not be so shabby. Are you ready? The captain noticed that Melissa and Johnson's expressions were strange and asked. The captain reluctantly returned to the group, but he did not say anything. Although May's field tradings was not as powerful as the Western Traders, but it was not something a small officer like him could climb up to. Only Johnson and a few other strong guards were still bitterly holding on. Other than the famous large-scale mercenary groups, most of the ordinary mercenary groups were extremely shabby. For the sake of a living, they would often have to take on other jobs, like the Western regions, where most of the mercenary groups were miners. Even May's field tradings had to look up to them. In the sky, 200 black figures soared up, like a flock of black eagles soaring. Tang Tian's face did not have a usual playful smile, but was extremely solemn. Rest assured, we will quickly take care of these killers. Melissa reacted quickly. We hired a mercenary group. We did not bring enough guards. I heard that it is not peaceful, so we can only hire temporary people. He looked at Tang Tian's stern expression and the cold light that flashed past his eyes. He was completely different from the usual young lad. They looked to be in a sorry state, and did not look like guards of a merchant group. Arthur City was really your doing. Just as the captain was about to leave with his team, his gaze suddenly swept across the guards surrounding the caravan. Only at such a time will you display the loftiness of the king of Ursa Major Constellation, the awakening of the god armor, the descent of the army. That's right. Tang Tian's expression remained the same. He continued, go tell them to set up camp and rest. Johnson, what do you think? The dense night seemed to be rapidly collapsing towards the demon-like figure in the sky. Melissa did not dare disobey his orders and could only walk towards the transport ship. When she was about to reach the transport ship, a brazen thought suddenly surfaced in her mind, and she was shocked by her own guess. When the liquid-like light spread from the back of Tang Tian's head to the top of his head, it flowed down from the top of his head and covered Tang Tian's face at a speed visible to the naked eye. The captain was enlightened. Thinking about it, how could May's field tradings and the Western Traders not have any business dealings? It was normal for young Miss Melissa and clan elder Jonathan to know each other. In the entire process, no one spoke, and the indescribable austere aura pervaded out in the night. The captain suddenly asked, who are they? Jize was wiping the bewitching blade in his hands, while Fu Zhengji was adjusting the position of his chief green swords. Melissa seemed to have awoken from a dream. That's right. Why am I being so stubborn? The bandits have nothing to do with me. I just need to watch from the sidelines. Melissa was shocked, but they look like this. A light aura suddenly blossomed from the group of people, as though a sun had risen from the ground and pierced through the darkness. Don't tell me. They want to do something to the Ratchet Army. A bone-chilling intent pervaded through her entire body, causing her to be stunned. They're trying to recover their strength. The old man said. His wrinkled face became even more serious, but deep in his eyes, there seemed to be a light aura blossoming. Melissa, No matter what, do not become enemies with them. Melissa replied, "Thank you for your bravery." The dazzling light aura flashed in the night. Suddenly, they disappeared again. Suddenly, she and Johnson were attracted by a commotion nearby. A soldier who was trembling from head to toe knelt down. Plop, sounds could be heard. Their minds were blank as they prostrated on the ground and trembled. Melissa had persevered for so long, but she had reached her limit and sat on the deck. The light aura on his fists dimmed down, as though it was burning red, but an inconceivable scene occurred. It was like a living thing, and also like molten iron, it extended along Tang Tian's body, and crisscross lines covered his entire body. The captain's suspicions disappeared. In the night, a group of wild beasts lay dormant on the ground, revealing their ferocious gazes. They did not speak, but all of their movements stopped. Their eyes were extremely bright in the night, as though they were stars. But the lingering killing intent made them look like wild beasts that were waiting to pounce. The sudden change between extreme speed and extreme stillness created an intense visual impact, causing everyone to hold their breaths. Night descended. Melissa was dumbstruck. Even Johnson, who was calm from the start, revealed a look of disbelief. The Western Traders was a powerful existence, with countless of powerful martial artists prostrating beneath its feet. It was like a monster with countless vines, firmly occupying the honorable martial continent's western region. Tang Tian looked at the enemy's army and left without stopping. Bang! An extremely oppressive explosion sounded out. The 200 men exerted their strength and stomped on the ground at the same time. The group of people on the ground disappeared. But the bandits who were sleeping all woke up. They quickly started to prepare. Although Melissa and Johnson did not understand what they were doing, but they could tell that they were well trained. Melissa quickly calmed down and revealed a sorrowful expression. "Uncle Jonathan actually met with such misfortune. I am very sad. I was preparing to visit Uncle Jonathan, but I never thought that." "Western traders?" The old man shook his head. "They will only become a part of this legend. That is..." The 200 men in the sky were like 200 lamps that were being lit up. Melissa's expression was pale white. She felt that she was extremely stupid to not have thought of such a simple thing. Only such powerful bandits can kill Ao Deng and his bodyguards. Jizai and Fu Zhengji, who were beside Tang Tian, suddenly lit up with light auras. Following that, the light auras rippled outwards. Jizai and Fu Zhengji seemed to have been injected with chicken blood, and spoke at the same time, "Kill them." Melissa was startled. Why did they suddenly want to set up camp and rest? Tang Tian did not explain, and directly pulled Jizai, Fu Zhengji, and Sima Shao to the side. A figure soared into the sky. It was Tang Tian. Arthur City's massacre had caused many of the local trading organizations to flee. It happened so suddenly, and the trading organizations did not have enough manpower. Out of consideration for safety, they could only hire mercenary groups. It seemed that Mace Field Trading's reaction was rather slow, and could only find ordinary mercenaries to make up the numbers. The space seemed to be pulled by him, and lines that could not be seen with the naked eye extended outwards. In the next moment, they stopped around Tang Tian. "Set up camp and rest." Tang Tian spoke to the 3 people in front of him. "I've changed my mind. We will move tonight and get rid of them. The Null Division does not have any warships now. If we were to meet them, we will be in deep trouble. We need to get rid of this army. Sima Shao, you stay behind to guard the fleet." Johnson had also received a huge shock, but his thoughts were much simpler. "Miss, why think so much? Just wait and see. If we are able to witness a legend, it will be an honor." Everyone fell to the ground, and in the next moment, snoring sounds could be heard. Melissa covered her mouth tightly, afraid that she would make a sound, her entire body trembling. So powerful. Melissa and Johnson were overwhelmed with shock. They stared intently at Tang Tian's fists. The captain puffed out his chest. Melissa's beauty had aroused his protective instincts, and he was like a proud bull, thumping his chest. Melissa did not sleep. Her mind was filled with the strange words that her grandfather had said in the day. If it was anyone else who said it, she would definitely scoff at it, but since it came from her grandfather who was wise and far-sighted, she could not ignore it. There were no commands, only the sound of wind breaking. The 200 men moved as one. Their speed was extremely fast, drawing 200 afterimages in the air. When the light aura on the last man lit up, the god armor army in the sky shone like stars. Their imposing and powerful aura seemed to have materialized. Everyone's aura had merged into one, boundless and boundless. It was as though they were ancient beasts that had walked out from the ancient wilderness. The aura that caused people's minds to tremble caused the wind to stop, the moon to lose its color, the sky to crawl beneath their feet, and the stars to become their wings. When he heard Jizei say something about a man with a demonic blade, he quietly dragged Jizei into the crowd. Sima Xiao did not summon Magatama. The proud young lad did not want to rely on Magatama for everything, and did not shrink back from training for the past few days. Why would I become enemies with them? Melissa was shocked by her grandfather's words. She had never thought of becoming enemies with the strange bandits, but after seeing them for the past few days, she understood how terrifying they were. But the meaning behind her grandfather's words shocked her, and after hesitating for a moment, she could not help but ask, "But they have offended the Western traders." Sima Xiao had always thought that his self-control was outstanding, but he never thought that he would still be unknowingly affected by Tang Tian. But very quickly, his eyes regained clarity. The God Armor Army was a system, and if he went, it would affect their performance. There were no problems with Tang Tian's arrangements. Everyone's movements were well practiced. No one revealed any expression of helplessness. They were doing things in an orderly manner. Sima Zhao's heart was filled with praise. Under Tang Tian's orders, the God Armor Army rested for the first time in the past few days. Tang Tian's fists were as dazzling as the sun. The aura of a war god once again descended onto the ground. As expected of the king of Ursa, major constellation. Let everyone seize the time to rest. We will make our move when it's dark. On the transport ship, Melissa watched the scene in shock. She mocked herself. I think I am thinking too much. They are just too tired. Chapter 836. The deck quietened down once again. The military transport ship was instantly torn apart like a piece of paper. Before it could even explode, it was engulfed by the flames, transforming into a bright red ball of fire. Dazzling sparks continued to blossom in the air. When Tang Tian and the rest disappeared into the night, the terrifying pressure that enveloped the fleet also disappeared. A scene that caused him to be overwhelmed with shock appeared in front of him. The energy barriers started to have needle-sized holes that continued to grow. He had never seen a poisonous smoke that could corrode an energy barrier before. In the blink of the eye, the densely packed holes filled the energy barrier. Only by rushing out can we have a hope of victory. One of the transport ships exploded, transforming into a gigantic orange fireball. The western region was vast and desolate, and the security was terrible. For the sake of ensuring their own safety, the mining groups would install weapons on the transport ships. Armed mining ships could be seen everywhere in the western region, and a few luxurious armed mining ships were standard warships. I've let you see a joke. Sima Xiao was like a young man next door who felt embarrassed after being praised, and revealed a bashful smile. The God Armor Army's fighting strength has not even recovered by half. They are not worthy of your praise. Chi. Personally witnessing the transport ships exploding in front of him, and seeing the soldiers under him turning into ashes, an unprecedented pain filled his body and mind. The energy surrounding the army was extremely lively, forming a unique energy wind that brought them forward quickly. Tang Tian was not anxious at all. He organized everything in an orderly manner, as though he was immersed in another world. Tactic number 43. His gaze was as sharp as a sword as he looked at the boundless night ahead. Suddenly, he opened his eyes. Enemy. The rainbow light vortex formed and frantically absorbed the energy around it. Its size rapidly expanded to the size of a millstone. The high-speed, flowing energy produced light scars that formed a beautiful halo around the vortex. Such a powerful fighting strength was not even half of the enemy's strength at his peak. then how powerful would the enemy's complete fighting strength be? Hearing their comrades' screams, the soldiers in the transport ships did not dare to come out, and were in a mess. But upon hearing Sydney's shouts, it was as though they had awoken from a dream. Ice blue, blood red, silver lightning. Not good, there's poison. Bang! She had never thought that a single person, an army's aura, could be so strong. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, it's hard to imagine that there's actually such a strong army in the world. Franks was full of admiration. The impact just now had caused this wise old man's mind to temporarily lose balance. There was a trace of fear in his voice. A dazzling light flashed through the green mist. Melissa asked with difficulty. Sydney had thought of countless possibilities, but he had never thought that he would be ambushed by his opponent. To him, the opponent would definitely not dare to directly clash with the Ratchet army that held the absolute advantage. The Arthur City Massacre. The survivors frantically jumped out of the deck and windows. He said with a smile, "We want to entrust the association to buy some warships for us. As for the price, we can discuss it." Sima Xiao laughed. He did not mind, and the deck immediately quietened down. Sydney's face was ferocious. He was like an enraged bull, his eyes about to pop out. An indifferent and emotionless voice seemed to ring in Sydney's ears. Sydney's expression changed. Suddenly, countless dazzling lights lit up around him. Shrill screams rang out one after another. These soldiers' bodies were covered with tiny holes, and their bodies melted and dissipated in the green mist like sand. The horrifying scene caused Sydney's hands and feet to turn cold. He did not wish to become a fat sheep in the eyes of others. That would be troublesome. He could not see anything around him. Sima Xiao could not help but smile. Us? That is a complicated question. Johnson, who was not far away, looked as though he had seen a ghost, while Melissa's face also changed. Franks immediately replied, "Just to make a living, just to make a living." Countless of dazzling light spots suddenly lit up, and in the blink of an eye, all of the light spots shot towards them like a rainstorm. The rainstorm spun in the air, transforming into many beautiful vortexes. In the distant sky, over 200 people quietly floated in the air, as though the conflict had nothing to do with them. They were as calm as bystanders. Only at that moment did he see the enemy clearly, and his face froze. The fleet flew steadily, and Sydney was preparing to rest. After thinking for the entire day, he was extremely tired. He viewed the mission with extreme importance, not only because of the death order from the commanding officer, but more importantly, if he could obtain the favor of the Western traders, it would not be difficult for him to rise up. Sydney screamed out in despair. Bang, bang, bang. But those who dared to do warship business in the Western region were all large organizations. How can there be such a powerful army in the world? Sima Zhao's display of fearlessness caused them to feel an indescribable chill. The enemy did not even place the Ratchet army in their eyes. The only thing they could do was to break out of the encirclement. Everyone gradually regained their senses from the shock and fear. Their dazed and sluggish eyes gradually regained their focus, and their faces slowly regained their color. But the fleet maintained their silence, and they could not help but look towards the direction where Tang Tian and the rest disappeared. Rush out! Quickly rush out! Who knew? Sima Xiao stood up and bowed. The green mist made it so that one could not even see their fingers, but the intense sense of danger made him instinctively activate his energy barrier. The sound of footsteps awoke her. She subconsciously raised her head, and unknowingly, Sima Xiao had already stepped onto the deck. Sima Zhao's face revealed a smile that was as warm as the sun, causing her anxiousness to dissipate. Sima Xiao could tell that the other party had left some leeway in his words, but he did not care. The disparity in strength between the two parties was too great, and if he could not control the flow of the conversation, he would not be the Scorpio King. Just at that moment, Sydney suddenly sensed a formless undulation, and his face changed. Without thinking, he shot forward and pounced towards the window. Sima Xiao was surprised. "I never thought that your organization would be so powerful." Melissa asked fearfully, "Is your army going to attack the Ratchet army? Who exactly are you guys?" Not good. Unlike the chaotic southern region, where warships could be bought anywhere, the honorable Marshall continent had always controlled the business of warships strictly. Of course, that was in the majority of the honorable Marshall continent, but in the western region, it was a different story. Bang! Before he finished speaking, the light halos dropped down from the sky like meteors, leaving behind a thick and dazzling light tail that whistled into the fleet. In that moment, the God Armor army that moved forward like specters suddenly became ferocious beasts that had found their prey. That's right, Sima Xiao admitted. To prevent these organized armies from giving us trouble, it is better to take care of them first. The enemy was strong, which Sydney acknowledged, but the disparity in numbers was too great. With such a disparity in numbers, the enemy's only feasible method was to use the terrain to their advantage and fight in the streets. Sima Xiao laughed, but did not reply, as though he did not hear anything, and continued. I wonder if your organization is familiar with Red Soil City? He had just jumped out of the window and shouted with all his might, wanting to remind everyone. But in the next moment, his voice suddenly stopped, his eyes opened wide, his face filled with fear. Then can I ask for your organization's help? Sima Zhao's tone was warm, causing people to feel as though they were bathing in the spring wind. Seeing the suspicion in their eyes, Sima Xiao smiled, but did not explain. Sydney's face was as white as paper. Without a trace of blood, he was at a loss. He sat down beside Melissa and spoke casually. I am rather simple. I am Sima Xiao. Melissa seemed to have escaped from a nightmare. She gasped for breath, her entire body perspiring profusely. Franks did not know the meaning behind Sima Zhao's words and spoke cautiously. The organization has a shop in Red Soil City. More importantly, the mission could be said to be difficult, but at the same time, it could be said to be easy. But Franks noticed another detail. God Armor Army? I apologize for my ignorance, but I wonder where your army is stationed? Warships? Franks heaved a sigh of relief. That is not a problem. My organization also operates warships. All of you can feel free to choose. We will definitely give you the best price. Compared to controlling energy, controlling the God Armor Army was much more difficult, and the majority of his attention was placed on organizing his law threads. Everyone's performance was not good, and could not even be considered to be qualified, and could only barely connect with his God Armor. What? What tactic is that? Quickly spread out. Franks' heart tensed up. Of course, as long as my organization can do it, we will definitely not decline. The dazzling flames, under the contrast of the green mist, looked as though it came from hell. Sydney's eyes immediately turned red. He screamed with all his might. He did not know what the poison mist was, but he knew that if they continued to stay in the green mist, they would definitely die. Only by rushing out would they have a chance of survival. Footsteps came out again, and the old man's voice came out from behind. Macefield Trading's Elder Franks sends his regards to Sire. If they were in an open area, the enemy would most likely not even be able to withstand one round of attacks. Close to a quarter of the transport ships transformed into fireballs and fell to the ground. And similarly, a quarter of the transport ships suffered from severe injuries. The hull of the ships were badly damaged. The large and terrifying scars on them were extremely shocking. The thick and black smoke surged out, and in less than 3 minutes, the battle was extremely intense. Another transport ship exploded. The difficult part was to find the enemy's location. They only had 200 men, and if they were to hide anywhere, it would be extremely difficult to find them. And as long as they found the enemy, the mission would be half done. Sigh, the sound of cold air coming out. The two of them were in disbelief. The strength that the God Armor Army had displayed had already exceeded the limits of their imagination, and if it was only half, then their full strength should have already exceeded the limits of humans. Breaking out like crazy, all of the transport ships frantically broke out. For the sake of scattering the enemy's attacks, they broke out in different directions. Regiment after regiment of flames blossomed in their vision from time to time. The figures that were engulfed by the flames caused every single soldier of the Ratchet Army to feel fear. The night wind whistled past his ears. Tang Tian, who was advancing forward, quickly closed his eyes his state of mind like an ancient well without any ripples. The dense and abundant energy made Tang Tian feel a sense of familiarity. His familiarity with energy allowed him to not be disturbed by it. He could effortlessly control the energy. Using laws to control the energy, he could use them as though they were his arms, following his heart. Chapter 837. Sydney heaved a sigh of relief. It was the first time he was able to defend against the enemy's attack. What made him even more excited was that it proved his conjecture. The enemy's strange tactics were more agile, but at the same time, they were more scattered. Once he gathered his troops, it would be the enemy's time to lose, and he was extremely confident. He had never seen such a strange method of attack before. The soldiers slowly fell, and a black figure suddenly shot out from behind the fallen soldier. A bewitching red blade, aura, suddenly slashed out from an inconceivable angle. Sydney did not know that he was being targeted. The situation was extremely chaotic. Previously, when the transport ships broke out of the poison mist, they were moving in different directions, causing the distance between them to be extremely wide. The transport ships were like headless flies and were in a mess. The soldiers beside him cheered. Their morale was greatly boosted. Sydney's smile froze on his face. His body froze in place. "This is," Sydney said anxiously. "Chi. The thin blood webs were like sharp blades, and a few soldiers were instantly dismembered, causing blood to rain down. "Defend! Hold your ground!" Sydney took the chance to shout. "Everyone, gather towards me!" Suddenly, a dazzling light aura pierced into his vision without any warning. A cold light flashed past his cold eyes. As expected of the honorable Marshall Continent, any random army's military general is not ordinary. Sydney's 2 consecutive roars immediately attracted Tang Tian's attention. The enemy was extremely brave and powerful, but they had a fatal weakness, which was that they were too few in numbers. With this number of people, they were unable to stop the other soldiers from returning. As long as he held onto the formation, every additional soldier would bring him closer to victory. A wind blade pontoon bridge appeared beneath Zhe's feet, and the 20 over members who were proficient in wind laws made their moves at the same time. Zhe held onto the bewitching blade. His figure became like a ghost. Stepping on the wind blade pontoon bridge, he instantly disappeared. Tang Tian remained expressionless. Sydney calmed down. The transport ships were too big and had poor mobility and were easily hit. And upon being hit with its weak defense, it would be smashed into pieces. The enemy's sneak attack was undoubtedly a success, but it was not like they had no chance of winning. Even with such heavy losses, they still held the advantage in numbers. Roars continued to sound out as the soldiers around him rushed towards the blood webs. As expected, upon seeing that their general had stabilized his position, the Ratchet Army soldiers who were on the verge of collapse all had their morale boosted and rushed towards Sydney. Clang! The energy barrier shook, but it quickly stabilized. Zhe was thoroughly enraged. His continuous attacks were unable to break this tortoise shell. His chest felt like it was suffocating. He had always been prideful and arrogant. Other than losing to Tang Tian, when had he ever lost to anyone else? Of entering the sacred of Saint Galaxy, of my of this, of. No, he was ambushed. As long as he stabilized his footing, he would definitely be able to turn the tables. Sydney calmed himself down. He still had the advantage in numbers. As long as he did not panic, he would definitely win. One after another, black vein patterns appeared on Tang Tian's fist aura, as though they were spatial cracks that led to an unpredictable void. When he exhaled, it sounded like the roar of a giant beast. The muffled sound contained the sound of thunder. The youth's face was as cold as stone, and his eyes were as indifferent as a lake. The flying debris and chaotic air currents did not cause any ripples. The chaotic battlefield did not affect him at all. The young man in the awakened state seemed to have removed his emotions, but he was able to bring his fighting instincts to the extreme. Zhe. The concentrated sounds of collisions made one's teeth ache. His berserk nature erupted. He attacked crazily. His speed was extremely fast, The blood-colored blade auras that filled the sky pounced onto the energy barrier like rain. Hiss, hiss, hiss. It was like the hissing of 10,000 snakes. It was the sound produced by the high-speed flow of energy. Tang Tian's fist was like a bottomless pit, crazily absorbing the surrounding energy. The more energy it absorbed, the dimmer its glow became, and the more terrifying the fluctuations it emitted became. The soldiers around him seemed to have woken up from a dream, and all jumped down from the ship and gathered around Sydney. Some of the quick-witted soldiers followed and shouted, "Disembark! Everyone disembark! Gather around, sir! Everyone, gather around the Lord!" As long as they were in formation, they would have the chance to win. But in that moment, Sydney had already hidden into the crowd, and even more soldiers rushed forward to protect their commander. Regiment after regiment of flames blossomed in the night sky, reflecting onto Tang Tian's face, flickering. Sydney's face changed, his eyes revealing disbelief. How can a single person achieve such a density of attacks? A bewitching red blade, aura, slashed onto the energy barrier. But the entire battlefield's gaze was attracted to the fist that was enveloped by the sun. The most important thing now was to get the soldiers to gather around him. Sydney was extremely confident. After suffering such a ferocious sneak attack, it was not strange for the army to be in chaos. But as long as he stood his ground, he was still alive, and the army would not be defeated. Crack! If he did not witness it personally, he would definitely scoff at such a tactic and could list out a bunch of failures. Without the strengthening of synchronization, the power of the attacks would be greatly reduced, and the attacks could only be coordinated but not fused, etc. But when he saw Ji gasping for breath as though he had just been fished out of water, staring at him fiercely, Sydney laughed. The thick energy barrier was like a crispy biscuit, his wrist piercing through. The scene in front of him seemed to have frozen. On the surface of the gigantic light barrier, a ferocious and imposing figure that resembled a demon god waved his fist. Hearing Tang Tian's bellow, Ji did not hesitate and rushed out like an arrow. Ji's face was extremely ugly. The attack that he was confident in actually failed, causing him to lose face. He snorted, his figure flashed like a ghost, and appeared at the other side. The blood-red blade aura lit up, and a few heads flew into the sky. The fist aura that was as bright as the sun dimmed down at a speed visible to the naked eye. Just at that moment, the soldiers blocking in front of him suddenly froze. A black net-covered golden crow, scorching sun, fell to the ground. I was actually beaten to such a sorry state by such a tactic. Even if you are strong, but with such an intense attack, you definitely cannot last for long. The crowd that was originally like a tidal wave suddenly stopped. Everyone looked in Sydney's direction in shock. His body that was like a bow seemed to have been injected with a surging berserk power, and his fist suddenly disappeared. But the army in front of him had completely toppled his understanding. But for the enemy's general to be so calm, it surprised him. After a full half-minute of attack, it was like a torrential storm. A figure that resembled an ancient demon god had unknowingly appeared outside the energy barrier. The golden armor wrapped him tightly, only revealing a pair of eyes that resembled 10,000-year-old ice plains, so cold that there was not a trace of warmth in them. Two soldiers' eyes immediately turned red. They roared and pounced forward, using their bodies to collide with the blade aura. The young man that resembled an armored demon god twisted his waist and raised his arms. Sydney bit his lips tightly. From time to time, there would be explosions in the crowd. The high temperature and flames were like terrifying monsters, continuously devouring the soldiers. The ice-cold and sharp ice blades silently stole lives from the darkness. The thick and powerful lightning snakes snaked around. Everywhere they passed, it was a path of death. Sydney was not a useless person. He immediately reacted and used all of his strength to shout, "Disembark! Everyone disembark! Get closer to me!" Sydney's body trembled slightly. Every blade aura would cause the energy array to tremble, and a wave of power would be transmitted to his body. Although after being split, the power was not as strong. but it was still too concentrated. He had already discovered a few different attributed energy attacks, which also meant that the mysterious army's attacks were being released by the soldiers. That's right. The young man's body was like a drawn bow, brimming with an unparalleled beauty and explosive power. An unprecedented sense of danger enveloped Sydney, and he almost blurted out, "Assassin." The Sacred Saint Galaxy's army emphasized on synchronization. The greatest use of the soldiers was to provide energy and synchronize with their comrades, and how to launch attacks, what kind of attacks to launch, were all decided by the military leader. In other words, it was to gather all of the soldiers' energy into the military leader and create an even stronger individual. The bewitching blade sliced through the bodies of the two soldiers like tofu. Time seemed to slow down. His movements seemed to be in slow motion. It was extremely clear. Following his movements, the energy in the air suddenly awoke and frantically surged towards Tang Tian's fist. Clang, clang, clang. The entire battlefield was under his control. Following that, an indescribable, terrifying aura enveloped the entire battlefield, as though a fierce beast that had been slumbering for 10,000 years had awoken from its slumber and opened its eyes. Even the energy in the air seemed to be shocked and suddenly stopped moving. The bewitching blade seemed to have absorbed even more blood. The red light became even more intense. The bewitching aura became even more intense, releasing buzzing sounds. The dark red blade suddenly softened, transforming into a boneless blood snake that pierced through the soldier's body, transforming into a blood net that enveloped Sydney. Especially when he noticed that the soldiers that were closing in on him like a tide, the nearest soldier was not even 10 away from him, causing the smile on his face to become even wider. That's right, I've never seen them before. Jizai's attack missed, but he was not surprised. Jizai's recovery was not as good as Fu Zhengji's, and that was related to laws. Jizai trained in blood laws, and with the dense energy of the Sacred Saint Galaxy, it made it difficult for him to affect the blood in the enemy's body. As for Fu Zhengji's chief green swords, they walked the path of poison and space, and were much less affected. The Ratchet Army's training was finally displayed. The soldiers' bodies all lit up with light auras, and the surging energy surged within the formation. Sydney took a deep breath, and a gigantic energy barrier enveloped them. The soldiers found their backbone and calmed down, and started to move closer. Chapter 838. They found it hard to believe. The Ratchet Army was not some cannon fodder army. How could they be defeated so quickly? That was an army of 5,000 men. How can 200 men fight against 5,000? We won. Looking into the distance, when the light aura dimmed and disappeared, and the night returned, Sima Xiao said indifferently. Whether he was deliberately mystifying, or was he truly capable, it could be seen from the respectful look on his grandfather Frank's face. He spoke in a lazy tone, but was always able to hit the nail on the head, and hit the crux of the problem. Just a few casual sentences would cause everyone's eyes to light up, and after thinking about it, they would feel that it had a deeper meaning and that it could be done. Plop sounds came out. He always unknowingly becomes the leader of the conversation. Everyone felt their vision darken. The boat beneath their feet started to sway, and they were unable to stand. Countless dazzling flames and lightning flashed outside the energy barrier, causing them to feel as though they were in the eye of a storm, causing the energy barrier to tremble. Bang! That's right, it was the Honorable Marshall Continent's top 5 armies, the 5 Honorable Marshall Tigers. The bodyguards sat on the deck, their pale white faces covered in perspiration. Their dazed eyes were unfocused. They gasped for breath with all their might, their bodies trembling uncontrollably. Energy storm. Sima Xiao chuckled. He stretched his back and said lazily, "What benefits do I get?" "Not more than 5. Franks thought quietly in the night. He was not surprised at all. If they were to trust anyone they met on the road, they would have long been swallowed whole. But he did not have the intention to give it away for free. How could the idea of the Scorpio King be so easily obtained? Energy storm. It is an energy storm, the legendary energy storm. Compared to it, Macefield Trading's predicament was nothing. As long as they could grab onto this thread of hope, Macefield Trading's predicament would instantly disappear, and they would only have a brighter future. Before coming to the Sacred Saint Galaxy, Sima Xiao had always placed himself on the same level as Tang Tian. He had the capital and confidence to do so. Scorpio constellation was one of the 12 ecliptic palaces and was stronger than Ursa Major constellation. In terms of strength, how could Sima Xiao, who had the Magatama, be afraid of Tang Tian? The air distorted. The countless of energy currents in the Qi wave were like a school of fish chasing after the waves, causing the Qi wave to become even more powerful. Wherever it passed, the grass turned to dust, and sand and stones flew everywhere. Its power was extremely astonishing. The grass was completely sent flying, and the ground was plowed with deep radial marks. Even if it was a hard rock, sparks would fly in all directions after being struck by the shrapnel, but once it was touched by the energy flow, it would instantly shatter. After the confusion, it was shock, fear, and reverence. Johnson's expression suddenly changed and anxiously said, "Get on the boat. All aboard. Raise the barrier. Quick." Her gaze involuntarily shifted to Sima Zhao's face. She felt that the young man in front of her was not much older than her. How could he be so powerful? Her grandfather was the person she trusted the most. If it wasn't for her grandfather, who could barely stabilize the situation, the Chamber of Commerce would have collapsed long ago. Unknowingly, this fellow had left them further and further behind. It was a terrible feeling. The arrogance he had a moment ago disappeared without a trace. The chestnut-haired youth's heart was filled with bitterness. Time slowly passed. The night sky became darker, and Melissa stood on the deck, feeling slightly cold. The sturdy hull of the ship let out a teeth-numbing sound, and an unprecedented fear enveloped everyone. On the distant horizon, a transparent white line rapidly enlarged in their field of vision. The whistling sound in the air became even more terrifying, and from the previous sharp and shrill sound, it became a low rumble. Many of the shopkeepers left the Chamber of Commerce to find another way out, causing the Chamber of Commerce to become weaker. As expected of a godlike young lad, the might of this attack is much stronger than before. Macefield Trading's was not doing well and was getting worse by the day. Although everyone was working hard, but the results were minimal, the old carriage slowly but steadily slid into the abyss. In the past 10 years, the profits of the Chamber of Commerce had been decreasing every year, and last year, the Chamber of Commerce had suffered losses for the first time. Sima Xiao could hear the cautiousness in the other party's voice and laughed it off. Melissa thought that she had heard wrongly and immediately revealed a look of anger. This man is truly too rude. Maybe he needs a proof of allegiance. A 200-man army was actually not inferior to the 5 honorable martial tigers. With such a comparison, regardless of whether it was the experienced and far-sighted Franks, the experienced Johnson, or the quick-witted Melissa, all of them were at a loss. Just a simple storm would definitely not have such a terrifying might. Only an extremely intense energy undulation would be able to cause such an energy storm, and even the energy in the air would be stirred and resonated. Even Johnson himself was at a loss. They did not underestimate the strength of the bandits, but the energy storm had completely changed their view of the army. Suddenly, a dazzling light aura lit up in front of them, causing the pitch-black sky to become as bright as day. It was as though in the next moment, the sun was about to leap out from the horizon. Their poor imaginations were unable to imagine such a scene. One after another, white light regiments flew out from the transport ships into the sky. The white light regiments continued to rise, and the brightness continued to rise. The blazing white light illuminated the surroundings. Everyone did not understand what was happening, but they still returned to the ships, and all of the transport ships activated their energy barriers. Everyone finally saw the scene in front of them clearly, and all of their faces changed. "Do you have any suggestions for the future of our Chamber of Commerce?" Franks could not help but ask. He had a pleading look on his face. Sima Zhao's leisurely look always made people have the urge to go up and punch him. Melissa was not a rich young miss who had not seen the world. although she was young and immature in many aspects, but she worked hard to participate in the management of the organization. Compared to people of the same age, she had much more experience, allowing her to have a good judgment and was able to roughly differentiate the other party standard. Franks was startled. It was the first time he had met such a direct person. But he was after all immersed in the business world for many years, and his shrewdness and breadth of mind were not comparable to ordinary people. He spoke cautiously. "What do you need? Please state your price." But from the Sin domain to the sacred Saint galaxy, the difference in strength between the two of them had slowly widened. Even after returning to the sacred Saint galaxy, Magatama's strength had not only recovered completely, but was even stronger than before. But Tang Tian's improvement was even greater. After a while, everyone could clearly see it. Johnson was slightly better. He did not sit down, but held onto the railing tightly, his face as white as paper. Franks was extremely excited. He knew that no matter what, he could not miss the opportunity. The situation of Mace Field Tradings could not be dragged on any longer. If there was no change, it would only walk step by step towards decline and destruction. He casually chatted with Franks, and it could be seen that the young man called Sima Xiao was extremely relaxed and fearless. After listening for a while, the unhappiness on Melissa's face disappeared, and what replaced it was respect. It was as though it was the end of the world. In the legends, only the top-grade armies could unleash destructive attacks, and only then would they be able to form an energy storm. The sharp and strange whistles pierced through their eardrums. The scene in front of them was stifling, causing Melissa's mind to go blank. As long as it existed, its might was enough to intimidate the world. Maybe just relying on this army, they might not be able to seize the world, but to protect a trading organization, or even more, it was more than enough. Furthermore, there was hope. Just at that moment, suddenly, a soul-shaking, strange whistling sound came out into everyone's ears. The whistling sound went from low to high, as though it was coming from afar. Everyone opened their eyes wide, trying their best to see what it was, but it was pitch black in front of them, and they could not see anything. Sima Zhao's expression congealed. Even though they were so far away, he could still sense the intense energy undulation. It was easy to imagine how earth-shattering the attack was. Magatama automatically appeared because she sensed the undulation. Regardless of which side the army belongs to, whether or not it is the honorable Marshall continent, it doesn't matter. Everyone slowly regained their senses. That's right, they were at a loss. It was a gigantic wave of air that was over 20 kilometers long. It stuck close to the ground and flew towards them at an astonishing speed. Melissa's face was pale white without a trace of blood. She suddenly understood that it was the energy storm that was produced by the dazzling light. Frank's and Melissa's bodies froze. Their faces were overwhelmed with shock that, one just like that, strength was the foundation of everything. It was a world where the strong ruled, and Sima Xiao was extremely clear on that point. Unknowingly, Magatama had appeared behind him, her beautiful eyes filled with splendor. Melissa was startled. Her face was filled with shock. She never thought that her grandfather would actually ask Sima Xiao about such a huge problem. What a powerful undulation! Flames, lightning, ice and frost could be faintly discernible in the wave of air. It was the dazzling light auras produced by the collision of different attributed energies. Everyone had the fear of surviving the calamity, as well as being at a loss. After an unknown period of time, maybe it was a few seconds, maybe it was a few minutes, but the trembling explosions and heart-palpitating screams gradually faded away, and the boat that was swaying in the wind and rain also gradually calmed down. After a full 2 minutes, Johnson slowly released his palm, which was hanging down, trembling slightly. He looked around in a daze. The entire fleet was forcefully pushed out over a few hundred meters. They looked to be in a mess. All of them had different degrees of injuries, but luckily none of them were severely injured. The only thing he was worried about was how to gain the other party's trust. Even the smiling Sima Xiao was definitely not someone who could be coaxed easily. If there were no tangible benefits, he would definitely not be able to move the other party. Johnson's face was filled with anxiety as he bellowed, "Honorable Marshal Bullet, Sima Xiao stood up and looked into the distance. In the entire honorable Marshall continent, how many armies have the ability to create an energy storm? In the sacred Saint Galaxy where armies ruled, in the world where the strong ruled, in the world where the strong ruled, in the world where the strong ruled, what better opportunity could there be? They actually saw it with their own eyes. They did not even have the time to think. The explosion that caused them to tremble instantly appeared in front of the fleet. The ground was in a mess. One after another, deep scars extended into the distance. Chapter 839. Tang Tian was curious about Sima Zhao's expression and said, "Of course, we can't let them run, so we can only kill them all. Oh my, this godlike young lad is so strong." It was completely different from when they left silently. Tang Tian revealed a fierce expression and slashed out with both of his palms. After a few more battles, the God Armor Army's strength would increase by leaps and bounds. Franks swallowed his saliva with difficulty. All of his plans were all scared away. Where did these fellows come from? They speak as though they have no choice but to kill them. Sima Xiao asked casually. Kill them all? An indescribable fear and cold intent surged from the bottom of his feet. It was as though he had seen 5 terrifying monsters sweeping through the honorable Marshall continent. One after another fist auras that resembled the sun brought along a destructive aura that rained down, and armies after armies wailed under their blades. The defeated soldiers were like headless flies. Wanting to stop them from escaping caused Fu Zhengji and the rest to have a headache. Thus, a cruel hunt began. Understood. Franks nodded his head. The warship that suits Master's configuration. I recommend the White Wind warship. Out of all the warships that my guild manages, the White Wind warship is an extremely outstanding silver-grade warship. It is fast, has strong attacks, and the standard number of people fighting is 200, which suits Master. Jizhe was extremely dissatisfied with his performance previously, but after the hunt, his performance was as though he was a completely different person. He gradually found a few tricks, and his strength increased explosively. Until the end, the bewitching blade in his hand was like a death god. Wherever it went, life would end. Tang Tian knew that the bigger the warship, the easier it was for Nietshio to command. The Null Division had powerful bodies, outstanding discipline, and unparalleled tacit understanding. They were naturally suited for warships. If there was a warship that could completely accommodate the Null Division, with Nietshio in command, then the warship would be a true moving stronghold. To them, it was undoubtedly a brand new exploration, but regardless of what kind of exploration it was inseparable from the tempering of actual battles. Tang Tian was also extremely tired. After removing the god armor, he sat on the ground. His face was pale white, and the strange thing was that perspiration could be seen with the naked eye. His face, hands, and body could not stop. In the blink of an eye, he was drenched in sweat, as if he had just been fished out of the water. The eyes of the crew members were filled with awe. Tang Tian desperately gasped for air. His brain was a little muddled, and his body was on the verge of collapse. When the God Armor Army returned, they did not hide their tracks at all. In the vast wilderness, the 200 men of the God Armor Army moved at full speed. Cutting through the wind and breaking the waves, they passed through the thick sea of clouds, bringing along a sky full of rumbling sounds and the faint light of dawn from the horizon. They entered everyone's vision. From the initial confusion, Ji Zhe and the others began to understand how to cooperate. The surroundings quietened down. Fine, bandits it was. Francois gritted his teeth and asked carefully, "May I ask what kind of warship Sir needs?" "It's all broken." Tang Tian felt his heart ache. The price of a standard military transport ship was quite high, and buying a warship in Red Soil City would also require a lot of money. The God Armor Army with only 200 men revealed a tyrannical aura that looked down on the world. They were all killed. Franks and Melissa, who were behind Sima Xiao, felt as though they were struck by lightning and were dumbstruck. An army of 5,000 men was completely wiped out by 200 men. This. Franks, who regained his senses, suddenly spoke out. "It's not like we don't have a 5,000-man warship." "Big warship?" Franks was startled. He tactfully advised, "Master, As long as the number of people is less than the minimum requirement, the warship will not be able to fight. Tang Tian's shocking godfist had completely erased Sydney, causing the Ratchet army to crumble. But Tang Tian's plan was not to defeat the enemy, but to destroy them. He did not want the Null Division to obtain the warships and cause the honorable Marshall Continent's attention to them. It was not only him, the others also reaped the same benefits. The possibility of death at any time in a real battle brought about a completely different experience and effect from training. Charging, driving, hunting, this set of tactics immediately turned them into seasoned hunters. After that, when they understood how to use the traps laid down by laws to conceal their killing intent, their hunting efficiency increased greatly. Franks then understood. Then how big of a warship does Master need? A 5,000-man warship. After a moment, he regained his senses, although his body was still exhausted, but his mind was extremely excited. The closer they got, the more intense the pressure became. Even Tang Tian himself was shocked by the might of the fist. Of course, it was only for a second before he became complacent. Godfist, this might was unparalleled. It was so powerful that it was a complete mess. Then to be able to create Godfist, how powerful must a person be? Everyone on the ship felt their vision darken. It was the God Armor Army that had suddenly stopped above the fleet. In that moment, the entire fleet was suffocated. It was just 200 figures, but they actually had the feeling of covering the entire sky, as though a gigantic dragon that had walked out from the ancient times had spread its wings, casting a shadow that enveloped the entire fleet. You really killed them all? He could not help but ask. It was a pity that Xie did not see it. Their bodies were exhausted, but their minds were extremely excited. It was their first battle after entering the Sacred Saint Galaxy. Winning the first battle was a huge boost to their morale. More importantly, many of them had reaped great benefits from the battle. Even the reason is so natural. The fist that he unleashed was definitely the strongest attack he had ever unleashed in his life. Oh my God, is the end of the world coming? That can't be helped. Let's not pursue defense for now. Tang Tian knew that to achieve that, the defense had to be low, so he added, but it cannot be too weak. The bigger the better. It would be best if it can hold 5,000 people. Tang Tian gestured. 5,000 people is probably not enough. Even if I wanted to buy it, it seems like I can only consider a 1,000 people standard for now. If not, then 800 is also the standard, since it's just for practice. The young man who was immersed in his sorrow did not notice the other people coming over. But Tang Tian also knew that a warship that could hold 5,000 people was already the largest scale warship. To any powerhouse, it was a strategic-grade warship that could not be bought with money. For example, Jize. What about the transport ships? Sima Xiao asked. Tang Tian did not make a move, and to the members of the God Armor Army, it was the best opportunity. Amongst them, the majority of them had not even recovered half of their strength, and many of them were like Jize. Their laws were weakened in the Sacred Saint Galaxy, and they needed to find a new suitable fighting method. Hearing that, Tang Tian immediately cut him off. A small warship that can hold 200 people? What I want is a big warship. Franks' mouth was wide open as he stared at Tang Tian in a daze. The sneak attack previously caused the Ratchet army to lose more than half, but even after Sydney was killed, the number of defeated soldiers still exceeded 2,000. And they only had 200 people, which meant that every one of them had to kill 10 people. The difficulty of fighting was not high, but the difficulty was preventing the enemies from escaping. Tang Tian was considered to have a better understanding of warships. He thought for a moment, then said, Silver grade. The warship weapons that they are equipped with are mainly blade-type weapons. They have to be fast and agile, and have outstanding endurance in fighting. The process of hunting and killing was a difficult and bitter battle, and the disadvantage in numbers was displayed in such a battle. But they did not disregard Tang Tian's orders. The God Armor Army landed. All of the soldiers had expressions of exhaustion, but their entire bodies were covered in blood, and killing intent lingered around them. It could be seen that the bitter battle was not easy at all. Tang Tian was unable to help them explore. The rumbling sounds were like thunder, following the surging airflow and rumbling into the distance. Sima Zhao's footsteps slowed down. His mood was terrible. He knew that with his own strength, even if he brought his most elite 200 men, regardless of what method he used, he would definitely not be able to wipe out the entire army. Tang Tian's nagging caused Franks to regain his senses. Sima Zhao, who was suffering from internal injuries, frowned like a ball of yarn. The young man looked at the sky speechlessly, sighing at the cruelty and mercilessness of life. Jie was not around, and Bai Shuai was not around. He could not accept the fact that the bandits had taken the initiative to find a ratchet army. Since when did bandits become so ferocious? When Sima Zhao said that they had won, the energy storm that followed made him completely understand how powerful the bandits were. But no matter how powerful they were only 200 men. How could 200 men wipe out 5,000 men? But silver-grade warships with 1,000 men were still rather common, and that meant that the Null Division needed 5 warships. But even so, the battle lasted for 2 whole hours, and every one of them was exhausted. His heart trembled. Could it be that the bandits have other comrades? He realized that he had underestimated the strength of the bandits. That's right. How can such strong bandits exist alone? 200 against 5,000. Is that a joke? That must be a joke. Tang Tian muttered. Without money to buy warships, seems like we can only snatch them. The Honorable Marshal Continent was attracted to the desolate city, but that was a later plan. Could it be that they have 5,000 comrades? Franks trembled. From last night until now, it was the first sentence that he had heard from Tang Tian that matched his identity as a bandit. Blood flowed like a river, and wails filled the land. My actions are so childish. I'm about to cry because of my own handsomeness. What do? Franks, who had a stomach full of ideas for half a day, suddenly felt his mind go blank. He opened his mouth wide, his face filled with shock. Franks nodded his head. If that's the case, it will be hard to achieve a high defense. Tang Tian seemed to have awoken from his dream and nodded his head instinctively. Yes, we killed them all. The 200 bandits in front of me wiped out the ratchet army, but 5,000 bandits. Hearing that, Sima Zhao understood and laughed out loud. The warships are not for us to use. That's right, it is not easy. The high speed breaking through the air caused the ground to tremble, as though it was welcoming the triumphant return of a hero. What an unpleasant tone. Chapter 840. That's right. Tang Tian's eyes lit up. Just as Franks was feeling confused, he heard Tang Tian say to Sima Zhao, "Seems like Zhongli Bai did well." A 5,000-man warship was hailed as an ultimate army warship, meaning that it could hold an entire army and was currently the largest warship. In every type of warship, they were differentiated by bronze, silver, and gold ranks, while the ultimate army warships only had one rank, which was the gold rank. Legendary battleship, Honorable Marshal's Roar? Tang Tian was roused. The Whitefields continent was shaken. Francois had completely calmed down at this moment and spoke frankly with assurance. After 200 years, many of its designs have already become outdated, including many places that have decayed. However, the main structure of the ship remained intact. The Honorable Marshal's Roar's keel was forged from 100 years of Honorable Marshal Continent storage of Honorable Marshal Continent mixed with star iron, which was one of the strongest alloys. The ribs of the boat were made of silver crystal wood that was more than 500 years old. At that time, the Honorable Marshal's ship's decommissioning had caused many arguments, but it was completely different from the second-generation Ultimate Army warships and could not be used, so they could only be decommissioned and sent to the warship graveyard. At that time, all the valuable things on Honorable Light had already been dismantled, but its most valuable keel and hull, because at that time, it used a crystallization technique. They were connected together and could not be dismantled, so they could only give up. Franks knew that Tang Tian and the others did not have a deep understanding of warships, so he explained in detail. "Master, we need to be careful of the Gold Continent bandits. It is better to avoid them," Franks said worriedly. But Franks and Melissa could not laugh at all. Tang Tian's tone did not have any hint of a smile, and his indifferent words revealed killing intent, causing them to tremble. Franks broke out in a cold sweat even faster, his legs trembling uncontrollably. A powerful killing intent enveloped him, making him feel suffocated. The main structure of the hull has been completely integrated into a huge crystal that can't be dismantled. Franks explained, its advantage is its high strength. It's very strong, and a battleship made with it will be much stronger than other types of battleships. However, if any part of it was damaged, the entire ship would completely collapse. In other words, this hull has no recycling value. However, it was too late for regrets. He braced himself and said, "Sir, I am not speaking nonsense." Tang Tian stood up with a whoosh and spoke swiftly. "Where is the warship graveyard? What is body crystallization?" Sima Shao could not help but ask curiously. A group of bandits operating mechanical weapons had appeared in the Whitefields continent and were suspected to be from the Gold continent. Numbering over 10,000, they were extremely ferocious. They were hailed as the Gold Continent Bandits, and it was said that they were driving a mechanical puppet that had never been seen before, which was extremely ugly. "Oh," Tang Tian responded with a calm expression. He lowered his head and spoke respectfully. "This lowly one is talking about the legendary warship Honorable Marshal's Roar." When Ji Zhe, who was meditating and resting, heard this, he opened his eyes and stood up silently. His hand was already on the hilt of the bewitching blade. He narrowed his eyes, and a ferocious glint flickered in his eyes. As long as Tang Tian gave the order, he would unsheath his sword and behead Frank without hesitation. The corner of Sima Zhao's mouth blossomed into an undetectable smile. The "we" in Frank's words revealed the intention of defecting. Tang Tian's eyes flashed with an ominous glint. His killing intent soared into the sky. Frank's face turned pale white. The intense killing intent caused him to perspire profusely. He knew that as long as he replied incorrectly, he would die. It was not only him. Even the Mace field tradings would be implicated and face a calamity. An indescribable killing intent enveloped the entire place. Even if it could not compare to the current generation's Ultimate Army warships, but against ordinary warships, it was an absolute advantage. He noticed Melissa and Johnson's reactions and knew that the old man was not speaking blindly. Upon hearing the words legendary warship, it was as though they were injected with chicken blood. For a warship to be hailed as a legendary warship, it is definitely not an ordinary warship. Tang Tian understood what he meant and said, "Continue." Along the way, there were trading fleets and mining groups that were retreating from the Whitefields continent, all of their faces revealing looks of fear. The tragedy of Arthur City was still fresh in their minds, and yet another group of even more ferocious Gold Continent bandits had appeared. How could they not panic? Even the Western traders, a huge organization, had suffered heavy losses. How could the other smaller organizations be spared? Could it be that he only becomes serious at the crucial moment? Melissa and Johnson exclaimed in unison. Hearing that, Tang Tian laughed out loud, and Sima Shao could not help but smile. The Arthur City bandits only had 200 men, while the Gold Continent bandits numbered over 10,000. Even the Daylight Army, a proper army, was almost completely annihilated. Who could protect them? In the depths of his heart, what made Tang Tian even angrier was, could it be that this young lad's taste is so bad? He has held it in for long enough. Sima Shao laughed. What you mean is, we should obtain the remains of the Honorable Marshal's Roar, and then reassemble other things. Tang Tian pondered. Tang Tian did not understand. Isn't that good? The hull is more important. Tang Tian was truly angry. He initially thought that there would be a good way, but in the end, it was a 200-year-old trash. Tang Tian's expression became serious. "Hey, old man, if you think that I'm easy to trick, then your Melissa or whatever organization can forget about existing." Frank's eyes opened wide, as though he was struck by lightning. He was petrified. It was rare to see bandits that numbered over 10,000. Bandits were usually undisciplined and untamed, and to be able to gather so many bandits without breaking apart, the bandit leader was definitely a powerful character. Melissa or whatever organization, that sounded like a joke. "Master, please allow me to report." At that moment, Franks decided to throw caution to the wind and calmed himself down. The Honorable Marshal's Roar is the first-generation Ultimate Army warship, and also the first Ultimate Army warship. At that time, the Honorable Marshal Continent wanted to create an unprecedented Ultimate Army warship, and thus designed the Honorable Marshal's Roar. Many of its designs are already outdated, but at that time, the Honorable Marshal Continent gathered the power of the entire continent to create it and never considered the cost. Thus, the quality of the materials used was the highest in history. After that, everyone realized that the Ultimate Army warship service time would never exceed 50 years, and 50 years was enough for the technology to make a qualitative leap. Thus, many places did not require expensive materials, and the cost of the Ultimate Army warship quickly dropped. Until now, the Honorable Marshal's Roar is still the most expensive warship. When Franks heard Melissa's report, he felt bitter in his heart. If these people know that the Ratchet soldiers have been completely wiped out, they will probably escape even faster. Melissa was the one in charge of gathering information. After this experience, it made Franks understand that Melissa needed to gain experience. No more, no less, the Honorable Marshal Continent had a total of 5 Ultimate Army warships. The Honorable Marshal's Roar is the first-generation Ultimate Army warship with outstanding achievements. It was decommissioned 200 years ago. But because of its outstanding contributions, the higher-ups set up a special place for it in the warship graveyard as a sign of respect. The warship graveyard is in the White Fields continent. Sima Xiao glanced at Tang Tian. A strange feeling surfaced in his heart. The Tang Tian in front of him was a completely different person from before. The previous Tang Tian was naive and pure, like a crazy young man. The current Tang Tian was stern and stern. He did not reveal any emotions on his face, and was a formidable and ambitious person. Ultimate Army warships were things that could not be obtained through other channels. Any Ultimate Army warship was a gold-grade warship. Do I look so easy to fool? Using a pile of 200-year-old trash to fool me. You must be tired of living. Tang Tian was not joking. 3 days after hearing the rumors of the Gold Continent bandits, an even more shocking news spread throughout the White Fields continent. Master is wise. Franks took the chance to flatter him, and continued. Although the Honorable Marshal's Roar is only left with the hull, but it is still the strongest Ultimate Army warship hull. As long as we spend some effort to repair it, it will still be an outstanding warship. And it is also the only way for us to obtain an Ultimate Army warship. Intolerable. One is the problem of cost. It is too high. At that time, the Honorable Marshal Continent poured all of their strength to create one Honorable Marshal's Roar and were unable to create another one. One Ultimate Army warship is too small, and the Honorable Marshal Continent needs more than one. The other problem is the problem of repair. Even if it is not sturdy, after being damaged, it can still be repaired. And the crystallized body of the warship, once it is damaged, it will crumble and cannot be repaired. Just as Tang Tian and the rest were heading towards the warship graveyard, they received news from Zhongli Bai. Hearing that, Tang Tian frowned and spoke in an unfriendly tone. "Old man, are you looking to die? The warships that were retired 200 years ago are all rotten. What? Do I look like a trash collector? Is that his true self?" The figure that resembled a war god seemed to overlap with the imposing figure in front of him, and all of the guesses and suspicions disappeared without a trace. The Whitefield continent had never suffered from bandits before, and in that moment, everyone felt insecure. So when Frank said that there were 5,000 men warships, everyone was startled. Melissa could not believe her own ears. What's wrong with grandfather? Why did he make such a low-level mistake? The Honorable Marshal's Roar's flaws did not matter to Tang Tian. Not compatible with the current designs? No matter, I will just throw it to Sai Lei to redesign it. The cost is too high. Anyways, he does not need to create an Ultimate Army warship. So what if it crumbles after being damaged? Anyways, it's free. The Gold Continent bandits suddenly attacked Daylight City and engaged in an intense battle with the Daylight Army. The battle was extremely intense and lasted for 3 days. The Daylight Army suffered a devastating blow, and less than 50 people managed to escape. Such a warship was something that no trading organization could have. Even the Honorable Marshall Continent did not have many of them. Only the direct, subordinate armies of the 5 great generals had the possibility of equipping an ultimate army warship, which was also the commander's warship. Furthermore, it was not impossible. Chapter 841. To Franks, it was the same. The benefits of the family far outweighed the benefits of the Honorable Marshall Continent. To leave the Honorable Marshall Continent and go to the Gold Continent, as long as it could allow the family to develop better, why not? Like an old soldier that had been through hundreds of battles, quietly sleeping. A gigantic skeleton warship that was the size of a mountain was completely silent. Well, Franks couldn't describe what he was feeling at the moment. He was still in a daze. In the eyes of the outside world, the Honorable Marshall Continent was united and strong, with a tight organization. But the Honorable Marshall Continent had only unified the various continents in the western region for a short period of time, only a few hundred years. In the tens of thousands of years of history, the Honorable Marshall Continent was just a new ruler. Even though they had thrown the various continents' royalty, aristocrats, and aristocratic families into the Sin domain. But the disgust the various continents had towards their rulers had always existed. It was just that the Honorable Marshall Continent adopted a high-pressure policy, and thus no one dared to say anything. Everyone else nodded their heads. That was true. Everyone were battle maniacs. As long as they had a bit of wealth, they would not be stingy with their weapons. The Honorable Marshall Continent has more than 10 warship cemeteries, with the western region having the most, with 8. Since it is desolate and sparsely populated, they can just casually pick a piece of land. Many of the warships that are decommissioned will directly head to the warship cemeteries, and after removing all the valuable items, they will be thrown into the cemeteries. In the decaying gray cemetery, under the sunlight, they could no longer see their majestic posture of shuttling through the artillery fire in the past. The howling wind could no longer be heard. Their roars that caused their enemies to tremble in fear in the past could no longer be heard. Tang Tian suddenly laughed, his eyes once again becoming clear. One after another, gray warships were piled up like mountains. They were densely packed, extending for over 10 li. The old gray color was endless. It was a gray cemetery, the home of the warships. Warships of all sizes were riddled with scars. Many of them had already decayed and broken. Spiderwebs could be seen everywhere, with the occasional appearance of wild beasts. He had never forgotten the bitter days when he had to show his face for a few tens of thousands of dollars. Tyrant Tang had also been poor in the past, and knew of the suffering of the world, so he could not bear to waste it. That's right. Tang Tian did not even turn his head. What's wrong with respecting the enemy? Tang Tian and the rest listened to Frank speak with great interest. The power behind Master is definitely immense, and it is highly possible that Master is an aristocratic family from the Gold Continent. The power that the Master had displayed was just the tip of the iceberg. If Master comes from a Gold Continent. 2 days later, they finally arrived at the warship graveyard that Frank mentioned. Even in the cemetery, it was still like an arrogant king, maintaining its dignity. All the battleships in the graveyard were like a circle of guards, standing guard at the side. Franks had always been extremely confident in his judgment. The accumulation of time and rich experience had given him keen insight, and this was also what he was most proud of. However, the strength that he was most proud of was thwarted time and time again by the Darren. If it wasn't because he made a mistake in his judgment, then it was because it was out of his expectations. Tang Tian and the others were shocked by the scene in front of them. The Gold Continent bandits that destroyed the Daylight Army were actually under Master. This is a different magnitude. There is no doubt that the Honorable Marshall Continent was strong, but in the face of history and culture, it was powerless. The only thing that interested them was the mechanical puppets of the Gold Continent. Mechanical puppets were a tradition of the Gold Continent. With over 10,000 years of history, it was another system. It was said that the training of the Gold Continent's martial artists was completely different from the Honorable Marshall Continent. They needed to spend a large amount of time on how to control the mechanical puppets. After a long time, he gradually calmed himself down and broke free from the shock. Franks was extremely motivated. Melissa was shocked by everyone's actions and subconsciously blurted out, "Aren't you all bandits? Aren't you all enemies with them?" They walked on the path that their ancestors had walked on, in the midst of the blade lights and fire shadows, the roars of the warships. They advanced shoulder to shoulder, facing the dusky world in front of them. It was the first time that everyone directly and deeply felt how powerful the honorable Marshall continent was. It was in the center of the graveyard and was different from the other casually placed warships. There was nothing in a 200 m radius around it. But he started to doubt his own eyesight. They had never surrendered. They fought side by side, and they held onto their dreams. Luckily, his decision was not wrong, and that was Frank's greatest joy. The power that the master had displayed was definitely not simple. After calming down, Frank's mind became much clearer. With the flow of time, they would grow old and leave, and at that time, would the people still remember them? Franks felt that the master had definitely heard the hidden meaning in his words. Tang Tian turned and stared at the old man for a long time. "Wait, just you wait." The young man's heart was silently accumulating resentment. Melissa was speechless. "Are you looking down on bandits?" Tang Tian stared at the old man with an unkind expression. Although he was a bandit for the time being, but he still had to protect the dignity of a bandit. Tang Tian's face no longer had the usual playful smile. He had a solemn expression as he stared at the gray graveyard, at the 100-war-old warships. He thought about Bing, thought about the Southern 10 armies. He thought about himself, thought about the Ursa Major constellation, thought about the Southern Alliance. Frank's eyes revealed a look of praise and spoke with profound meaning. "Master's bearing is extraordinary. How can bandits have such bearing? This is a different future." If we were to say that Franks was previously filled with doubt and worry about his choice, then now, the Gold Continent bandits are actually Master's subordinates. Previously, he had decided to rely on Tang Tian because of Tang Tian and the God Armor Army's powerful strength. A top-grade army was more than enough to protect a trading organization like Mace Field Tradings. But a top-grade army with a large organization behind them, its power would be 10 times or even 100 times stronger, to the point that it was unimaginable. Maybe Master comes from a gold continent? The warship graveyard was located in a remote area, and the fleet of Mace Field Tradings quickly left the crowd. The people of the God Armor Army had been keeping a low profile recently. They did not train outside the ship like before, but stayed inside. Franks was a typical example. Their homeland had been conquered, they were powerless to resist, and had lost their faith. They did not dare to go against the honorable Marshall Temple, but the disgust in their hearts could not be removed. The honorable Marshall Temple also understood this point, so the benefits of the honorable Marshall continent would always be given to the Western traders and not Mace Field Tradings. This was undoubtedly the most natural connection. The Gold Continent bandits numbered over 10,000, and all of them used mechanical puppets. That was definitely not something an ordinary organization could do. Of course, Tang Tian would definitely not want to throw them away. That's too much of a waste, such a big ship, to throw it away just like that. Tang Tian lamented. The gains from a single battle would usually exceed a long period of training, especially for the God Armor Army, who had a solid foundation and only needed time to adapt. Their understanding of the Gold Continent was limited to the fact that it was the largest continent in the Eastern region and the overlord of the Eastern region. Tang Tian took a deep breath and suddenly bowed to the countless of old ships. Franks was startled. Sima Shao thought about it. He looked at Tang Tian deeply. He finally understood why Tang Tian was able to create one miracle after another. Franks had traveled extensively when he was young. He had a lot of experience and was eloquent. He had heard of all sorts of interesting things, and thus the journey was not boring at all. Once a legend, once a king, honorable Marshall's roar. When that thought popped out, he could no longer suppress it. Franks did not care about the Gold Continent and honorable Marshall continent being enemies. He did not have any good feelings towards the honorable Marshall continent. Living for a lifetime is enough. What does living for eternity have to do with me? The years had taken away their companions that fought alongside them, and also made them old. They slept here, and slowly passed away. How many warships are there? No one knew. Regardless of where they stood, facing these sleeping old soldiers, no one would not be moved, and no one would not respect them. Franks became more excited the more he thought about it. Seeing that, Sima Xiao could not hold it in and laughed out loud. It was the first time that Franks felt that he had lived like a dog, but it was not that he was inferior to the master. The master was a genius, and he knew the difference between geniuses and mortals. Franks knew that the Honorable Marshal's roar was stopped at the warship cemetery, but he did not know the exact location. The group of people started to search the large cemetery, and after an hour, they finally found their target. To the Honorable Marshal continent, the Gold Continent was undoubtedly a foreign place. The Gold Continent was located in the eastern region, while the Honorable Marshal continent was located in the western region. The two were separated by more than 100,000 li. Like the Whitefields continent, it was the westernmost part of the Honorable Marshal continent, and the Gold Continent was too far for them. What was even more intolerable was that Tyrant Tang could not afford to waste it. After a long while, everyone recovered from the shock, but all of their faces had a trace of respect. The abandoned warships were piled up like corpses. Every single warship was covered with scars, showing how many battles they had experienced in their lives. Even if their names were lost in the river of history, even if they did not accomplish anything great, but everyone had fought side by side, and every single person around them were real, all of their feelings were sincere, and the ideals in everyone's heart would accompany them for life. All of these warships have basically reached the end of their lifespan, and do not have much value, and the cost of dismantling them is very high. It is different now. The materials of the warships have all been processed and cannot be used repeatedly, so naturally there is no value in recycling them. As for the weapons, they're extremely worn out. Adding the development of technology, no one wants them. Weapons are things that are used to protect one's life, and if one has money, they will naturally buy good ones. Franks explained. It was the first time that Franks felt that a person was unfathomable. You will never know how many trump cards he has, and every time you think that you have seen the master's trump cards, but after a while, you will realize how stupid and short-sighted you are. The God Armor army behind him also bowed. Chapter 842. He was not trying to shirk the responsibility. The Ultimate Army warship was a top-grade warship, and those who had the ability to modify it were definitely Grandmaster-grade shipbuilders. Forget about Mace Field Tradings. Even the entire Honorable Marshal continent did not have many of them. Rumble. Franks was startled. Could it be that Sir had a master shipbuilder under him? The Null Division's current warships were all seized by them. Looking at the swaying warships that looked as though they were drunk, Zhong Li Bai was filled with a sense of superiority and was even more determined to never sit on Niechio's warship again. He would rather die than sit on a battleship again. It was a form of torture. A real man is someone who drives a monster as fast as lightning. Zhong Li Bai muttered. His spirit was slightly weak from sitting on the warship for the past few days. Not only him, but the other team members around him also looked like frosted eggplants. Once they got used to a monster running around, they were not used to sitting on a battleship. That feeling of emptiness made these fierce warriors feel dispirited and listless. Screw raised his head and stared blankly at the wreckage of Honorable Marshal's roar. Don't worry. Tang Tian waved his hand and said, I'll take care of this. Franks was old and could not see clearly, but he heard Johnson exclaim, Daylight Army. Tang Tian didn't explain and just kept working hard. For some reason, Franks heaved a sigh of relief. If a Grandmaster Shipbuilder Spirit General suddenly appeared, he felt that he would go crazy. Master Shipbuilder Spirit General. Master should actually be the illegitimate son of the Temple Great Clan Elder, right? Gold Content Bandits. Tang Tian could not help but look at Screw. The Southern Cross brand had long entered deep into Screw's soul. When a battleship was docked, it accidentally crashed into a pile of wreckage, raising a cloud of dust. What do you think, lore modding? Franks revealed a look of worry. The organization has shipbuilders in Red Soil City, but but I'm afraid that their ability will not be able to handle a warship of the Honorable Marshal's Roar's grade. Who knows if the army to exterminate the bandits is already on the way. The earlier the Null Division forms their fighting strength, the more advantageous it is for them. The hull of the ship had been completely dismantled, leaving only the core of the ship. However, the keel was, as Franks had said, abnormally strong. No matter what they did, they couldn't leave a mark on it. Even Tang Tian's godly fist could not shake it at all. Franks had been secretly observing the master subordinates. He had seen countless people, and all of them had extraordinary bearings. With one look, he could tell, but when the Null Division generals saw the wreckage of Honorable Marshal's Roar, they all opened their mouths wide and revealed looks of shock. Master Luo is there. When Zhong Li by mentioned Screw, his face involuntarily revealed a look of respect. The current entire monster army would call him Master Screw. Sai Lei Emolong? Or Sai Lei Emolong? Who is this? With Sai Lei's crazy research personality, he definitely had a lot of ideas. With Screw and Emolong's help, he believed that it would not be a problem. Screw, Tang Tian shouted. Screw did not feel anything and reached his hand into the bronze toolbox. Crazy Tang. Will this be our battleship in the future? Amaury's eyes lit up as if he had seen a huge toy. Screw turned around and looked at Tang Tian in confusion. All right. Screw did not beat around the bush and nodded his head. He turned and spoke to Zhong Li Bai. Toolbox. Tang Tian did not care about the Null Division's reaction. The control of a warship was extremely complicated, and he himself was not much better in the past. Tang Tian immediately smiled and shouted, "What are you all standing for? Come and clean it up." After 2 days of tireless cleaning, the Honorable Marshal's Roar's wreckage looked brand new. The luster of the silver crystal round wood was breathtakingly beautiful. The star iron that had been mixed with Honorable Marshal origin stones would release a gentle white light at night. Thinking about it, the battle between warships is much more intense than an individual. And the Honorable Marshal's Roar that was designed to be the strongest warship was built with extremely expensive materials. How could it be destroyed so easily? He had not thought about it clearly previously and had a sudden inspiration. Now that he had truly found the wreckage of Honorable Marshal's Roar, he realized that he had overlooked the most important problem. And even he felt that it was a pity to casually find a shipbuilder, as it was a waste of such a good hull. If not for the entire hull being crystallized, any piece of scrap material could be sold for a huge sum of money. Now that everyone looked at the hull that had been crystallized, they could only drool. After boarding the Honorable Marshal's Roar, they were able to directly experience how enormous it was. As expected, Tang Tian said, "Then can you map it out? We will go and discuss it with Sai Lei Emolong." Franks chuckled. Why won't anyone want it? It's because no one dares to take it. Ultimate Army warships are strategic weapons. Just like large-scale siege boats, no trading organization or family dares to touch it. Don't tell me you want to go against Temple. As long as anyone dares to stretch their hands over here, Temple will immediately come and find you to have a good talk. Running to Screw, he gently placed the metal cabinet on the ground. His careful demeanor made it seem as though he was holding onto a porcelain that would shatter upon contact. Suddenly, a fleet flew over from afar. Before entering the Sacred Saint Galaxy, he had always been suppressed by Niechio. But after obtaining Monster, they were finally able to unleash their fighting capabilities. The first battle caused everyone's eyes to light up as they destroyed the Daylight Army. Although the insignia on the warship had been removed, but Johnson was extremely familiar with the Daylight Army's warships and was able to recognize them. Tang Tian was enlightened and smiled even more. That's right. They can only benefit us for free, since we are bandits. We need to find Temple to have a good talk. I don't know. Screw shook his head. I'm not familiar with warships. In the next moment, Zhong Li Bai carried a half-meter tall metal cabinet and sprinted over. Even for Franks, who was experienced and knowledgeable, and had heard of the legends of the Honorable Marshal's Roar, but personally witnessing it, he was still shocked by the luxurious materials used by the Honorable Marshal's Roar. There were no other patterns on the bronze chest, only a large Southern Cross Army insignia. This place is truly hard to find. Countless of questions swirled in Frank's mind. Previously, everyone was skeptical of Frank's words, but after personally testing it, they realized that the Honorable Marshal's roar was truly powerful. Hearing that Tang Tian wanted them to clean, all of them were filled with enthusiasm. It was not a small project, it was truly too big. More than 200 years had caused it to change beyond recognition. Large patches of vines covered the entire hull of the ship, making it look like a green waterfall. The interior of the ship was a paradise for wild beasts, with feces and urine stains everywhere. Every corner was covered with spider webs, with all sorts of insects roaming around. Tang Tian worked while asking, "Such good dragon bones, why doesn't anyone want them? Anyways, it's free." The crowd automatically split apart, revealing Screw's figure. Tang Tian was surprised. Zhong Libai was an arrogant and untamed person, but he never expected him to be so obedient toward Screw, causing him to be surprised. When the fleet flew above the warship cemetery, a group of people jumped down from the warship, with Zhong Libai at the lead. "Can this ship be repaired?" Tang Tian asked with anticipation. The Null Division generals appeared in front of Tang Tian. All of them had ashen faces and awkward expressions. To perform so badly in front of the master was truly embarrassing. On the contrary, Nietchio had a calm expression, without any embarrassment. Franks muttered to himself, "There should be 3 Grandmaster shipbuilders in the Honorable Marshal's roar, Master Lu is far away in the Lu continent. Master Cameron and Master Derek are both in Temple. Sigh. Do we really have to find shipbuilder? What a pity." But Franks, who had been paying attention to Tang Tian from the start, had a thought. Why is Master not disappointed? Does Master have any other ideas? I'll bring it over now. Without saying a word, Zhong Libai turned and ran, especially since the ones controlling the warships were all novices. If it can be repaired. Tang Tian had a pleased look. He turned and asked, "Where's Screw?" Zhong Libai finally had a chance to hold his head high. The only thing he was worried about was time. The news of the Ratchet Army and Daylight Army's destruction could not be hidden. Many of the trading groups had already escaped from the Whitefields continent, and the nearby garrison armies and the Western traders would definitely receive the news. Franks was too old and could not handle the physical work. Thus, he sat not far from Tang Tian. As for Melissa, she was not as lucky and followed along with them to clean up. Tang Tian had never known what it meant to have tender and protective feelings for the fair sex. Luckily for them, they were not squeamish people and worked extremely efficiently. Johnson revealed a serious look. A light flashed past Frank's muddy eyes, while Melissa revealed a look of curiosity. The Gold Continent Bandit's reputation was currently at its peak in the Whitefields continent, and the trading groups that escaped from the Whitefields continent had described them as demons and ghosts. "Oh." Zhong Libai covered his face with his hands, revealing an expression that he could not bear to watch, and then spoke to Tang Tian with a righteous look. "Master, I feel that we need to train in long-distance raids, and using this method to blend in with the journey, the results will definitely be obvious. Master, you don't have to feel sorry for these brats." Franks and the rest all looked at Screw. Their faces were filled with shock. Could it be that this dull-looking spirit general is actually a Grandmaster shipbuilder? He immediately rejected his own guess. A Grandmaster shipbuilder was not an achievement that anyone could achieve. The Southern region and Honorable Marshal continent had the highest standards in shipbuilding. The Southern region specialized in trading ships, while the Honorable Marshal continent specialized in warships. The Southern region had 2 Grandmaster shipbuilders, while the Honorable Marshal continent had 3, and the world had a total of 5 Grandmaster shipbuilders, all of whom were extremely famous. Tang Tian was filled with confidence. That was where his confidence came from. With the cooperation of the 3 mechanical Grandmaster shipbuilders, as long as they had the time and materials, he had the confidence to even reconstruct a new Honorable Marshal's roar. To anyone who had become a Grandmaster in their own domain, his comprehension and accumulation was extremely terrifying. Tang Tian had once given some information about the Sacred Saint Galaxy warships to Sai Lei a long time ago, But due to the lack of materials, Silay did not build a warship. Wasn't the Daylight Army killed by the Gold Continent bandits? Frank's expression froze. Master, how much do you like being a bandit? But to have a good talk with Temple. Truly tyrannical. Chapter 843. When Screw's hand touched the bronze chest, the half-meter-tall bronze chest blossomed like a flower. Countless of different bronze components flew out, causing everyone to be dazzled. In the next moment, a bronze workbench appeared in front of Screw. It was undoubtedly an extremely daring, risky, and radical plan. The mechanical martial artist's fighting capabilities could not keep up with the mechanical spirit weapons, and if word of it were to spread, he would not be able to bear the shame. Melissa and Johnson immediately reacted, their faces changing as well. Everyone had secretly guessed the origins of the group, but no one had guessed that they were from the Southern Alliance. The Southern Alliance and the Honorable Martial Continent were fighting intensely, and they were at a disadvantage. How could they appear here? This is the westernmost part of the Honorable Martial Continent. Could it be that the Southern Alliance crossed the entire Honorable Martial Continent and came to such a desolate place? It was already inconceivable for the Southern Alliance's army to suddenly appear in the westernmost part of the Honorable Martial Continent. And the one leading this army is the leader of the Southern Alliance. They suddenly realized that Temple was in danger. But regardless of how they looked at it, it was an outstanding plan, and in theory, it had a high possibility of success. He did not know how shocked the three of them were. And for Tang Tian to personally take the risk and execute the plan with fearless courage, he was definitely a leader worthy of respect. Everyone held their breaths, while Zhong Li Bai and the rest revealed looks of respect. Tang Tian happily waved his hand. I will not let you guys suffer. But Screw's next action caused Tang Tian to be startled. Franks hesitated for a moment, then asked carefully, I wonder what position Master holds in the Southern Alliance. Screw then took out a silver ruler that was overflowing with light. On it were countless of minute scales that seemed to be constantly changing. Compass top, Pai Pa gave it to me, Screw said without raising his head. Franks was dumbstruck. The scene in front of him was completely out of his comprehension. And it's a spirit object. But when Frank said the words Southern Alliance, they were jolted awake. Tang Tian laughed, but did not say a word. Pictor constellation was truly too small and secluded. It was one of the southern sky constellations, and its usage was extremely unique and was usually used by professionals. My eyes must be failing me. Frank's face was filled with self-mockery. His expression turned solemn, and he said, From now on, Macefield Tradings will only follow Master's lead. Franks, Melissa, and the rest were dumbstruck. When had they ever seen such a mystical mechanical technique? All the more he shouldn't have said it out loud. Melissa's face was filled with shock, while Johnson heaved a sigh of relief. Maybe to Macefield Tradings, it was a gamble, but to him, it meant that his life was temporarily preserved. Oh, Tang Tian was enlightened. But in the next moment, he saw something else in Screw's hand, and his eyes widened once again. It was an exquisite silver compass, and it was spinning around in Screw's hand like a top. Zhong Li Bai, who was by the side, was not too surprised. They had long experienced Master Snail's power. It was normal for Master Snail to be powerful. It would be abnormal if he wasn't. In the past few days, their monster army had long been renewed. For the first few days, Master Snail was immersed in researching various materials, and Zhong Li Bai did not think much about it. But after a few days, when Screw started to strengthen the monsters, Zhong Li Bai was completely stunned. Tang Tian's eyes were wide open. Screw's ability to use star treasures had already surprised him, but to be able to combine and use star treasures together, that was too powerful. After a long time, the three of them did not react, causing Tang Tian to feel awkward and angry. Do I not look like it? After strengthening the monsters, their performance would increase by at least 30%. Tang Tian did not know what to say. Compass constellation was also one of the southern sky constellations, and like Pictor constellation, it was a typical small constellation that was rarely used by martial artists. As expected of the chief mechanical engineer of the Southern Cross Army, the drawing frame in Screw's hand shot out a light beam, which expanded in front of everyone and transformed into a light screen. In the light screen, the Honorable Marshal's roar's outline continued to improve, and like a waterfall of data, it poured down from the right side of the light screen. Tang Tian was filled with curiosity. Screw had taken out 3 silver star treasures at once, causing Tang Tian to be filled with anticipation toward how he would measure the Honorable Marshal's roar. Screw's ability to use silver star treasures had already surprised him, but what made him even more surprised was that he actually took out 3 silver star treasures at once. As long as Tang Tian and the rest were to make their move, the huge advantage of the front lines would not be of any use, as distant water could not quench the present thirst. The situation of the war would enter an extremely subtle and dangerous stage. The bronze workbench was filled with all sorts of strange and exquisite tools. It was a dazzling sight, causing even Tang Tian to be shocked. He never thought that the seemingly small bronze toolbox would actually hold so many things. This is a leader worth following. Sigh, the 3 of them sucked in cold air. Pictor Constellation, Tang Tian asked with uncertainty. Machi Constellation, who gave this to us? Tang Tian's tone was certain. He was rather familiar with the constellation, as Jinghao had trained in the inheritance of the constellation a long time ago. But Jinghao had long broken through the restrictions of Machi Constellation and stepped into a wider domain. For a spirit general to have 3 spirit objects in his hands, and they were all powerful and mystical spirit objects, it was definitely out of his imagination. Wait a minute, spirit objects. The thought suddenly flashed past his mind, and he blurted out, Southern Alliance. Screw looked to be sluggish, but upon touching the mechanical objects, it was as though he had become a different person, brimming with spirituality. Zhong Libai finally understood why the Ursa Major constellation was able to become stronger the more they fought, and finally understood what it meant to be a mechanical grandmaster. The Leo constellation had researched on the Ursa Major constellation for so long. If they were to know the truth, who knew what they would feel? But Zhong Libai did not have the interest to care about the Leo constellation. He was currently a military general of the Ursa Major constellation. Furthermore, the increase in monster. His fighting capabilities made Zhong Libai, who had just raised his eyebrows for a few days, feel an immense pressure. Compass constellation, Tang Tian blurted out. It was too obvious. A small and exquisite silver drawing frame appeared in Screw's hands. The familiar undulation made Tang Tian immediately realize that it was a star treasure. But what made Tang Tian unable to comprehend was that Screw actually knew how to use star treasures. Since when does Screw know how to use star treasures? Countless of thoughts flashed past Frank's mind, and in the next moment, he made a decision. In truth, they no longer had any leeway to choose, even if Tang Tian did not kill them. The news of him plotting against the Honorable Marshal's roar with the Southern Alliance would spread out, and Temple would definitely not let them go. Temple's high-pressure policy towards the Honorable Marshal continent had never changed, and with such a crime, no one from Macefield Tradings would be able to survive. Screw, who stood in front of the bronze workbench, suddenly had a change in aura, as though he had become a different person. His stupefied face suddenly became lively, and his pair of eyes that had always been perplexed became extremely focused, like the stars in the night sky, flickering with light auras that no one could look at. Tang Tian then realized, no wonder Zhong Libai and the rest respected Screw so much. I am Tang Tian. Tang Tian did not hide anything, and said calmly, the boss of the Southern Alliance. Tang Tian had actually brought his army to the westernmost area of the Honorable Marshal continent without anyone knowing. They no longer had any path of retreat, even though Tang Tian was smiling indifferently. But as long as they chose to leave, none of them would be able to leave. In the past few days, he could already see that although the master looked harmless normally, but at the crucial moment, his methods were extremely ruthless, causing people's hearts to turn cold. Zhong Libai did not dare to relax, and continued to train his subordinates even more fervently. Whether or not Jia could stop Tang Tian was the deciding factor in the war. If he could delay until the 3 great armies destroyed the Southern Alliance, or until the front lines returned, then Tang Tian, who was deep inside the Southern Alliance, would be trapped. And if Jia was unable to stop him, then Tang Tian's army would become a fatal dagger that stabbed into the heart of the honorable Martial Continent. Upon saying that, the old man knew that he was in trouble, and his face turned pale white. Recently, the Sacred Saint Galaxy had many spirit objects, and only the Southern Alliance was known for it. The three of them were dumbstruck. It was dead silent. They had personally witnessed the fighting capabilities of the God Armor Army, and the current honorable Martial Continent only had Jia's direct subordinate army that could cause an energy storm. If Tang Tian was able to repair the honorable Marshal's roar, adding the Gold Continent Bandits' mechanical army, it was the honorable Martial Continent's weakest moment. Screw then threw the floating light rectangular ruler into the light screen, only to see it transform into a ray of light, and countless of scales appeared on the light screen, like fine red needles dancing around. Macefield Tradings was a local trading organization. With their help, the success rate of the entire plan would increase greatly. Floating light rectangular ruler, ding dang, gave it to me, Screw said indifferently. Upon seeing Tang Tian's expression, Frank's heart sank. All of their faces turned ashen as they trembled in fear. Previously, they felt that relying on Tang Tian was not a big deal, since Macefield Tradings was not important in the honorable Martial Continent. For example, the Gold Continent and the honorable Martial Continent were separated by a huge distance, and the conflict of benefits between them could be ignored. But the Southern Alliance was different. They were currently fighting with the honorable Martial Continent, and if Macefield Tradings were to rely on the Southern Alliance, the honorable Martial Continent would definitely kill them. Franks felt as though he had fallen into an ice house. His lips trembled. Previously, if he had suspected that Tang Tian and the rest were related to the Southern Alliance, he would definitely not have made such a choice. At that time, the crux of the battle would be the battle of time. They suddenly thought about it. Ever since the start of the Southern Expedition, there had been countless of reports from the front lines, but they had never seen any news of the Southern Alliance's leader. Even the spirit general commander of the Southern Alliance had appeared many times. No matter how stupid a person was, they would understand how this would affect the situation of the battle. The Southern Alliance actually stealthily laid down a fatal killing technique. It was a true killing move, with 3 of the 5 great generals attacking, Muji Xia guarding the borders, and the entire honorable Martial Continent only had Jia. Silver light painting frame, Sai Lei gave it to me, Screw said without raising his head. The gyroscopic compass in his other hand transformed into a ray of light and entered the remains of the honorable Marshal's roar, only to see a black dot appearing on the light screen. And in the next moment, the black dot started to move, forming a black line. Chapter 844. Melissa was startled. What do you mean by other place? Hurry up, young lads. All of you better be alert. Why is there such a huge difference? Melissa muttered. Zhong Li Bai's mind was roused. Red Soil City, without the protection of an army, was like a delicious meal to the monster army. The 3 of them were stunned by Tang Tian's powerful words, and the entire laboratory became quiet. But when they started to run, no one would have such a thought. Mo Lung did not waste his time either. His foundation was different from Sai Lei, and his research direction was different as well. After a while, the madness in their eyes gradually subsided, and they calmed down. Sai Lei, Mo Lung, and Screw discussed and argued about the honorable Marshal's roar for the entire night. Melissa was speechless. From what we can see, the honorable Marshal's roar's hull itself has the corresponding circuits. Although some of the circuits do not have high energy efficiency and are rather old-fashioned, but it has an advantage. It can withstand an astonishing amount of energy, so we might as well increase the energy flow, since star rocks in the Sacred Saint Galaxy are not worth much. And we can use star treasures and use it as the frame of a stronghold. What Screw brought was not only the data of the Honorable Marshal's roar, but also a large amount of information on the materials in the Sacred Saint Galaxy. Zhong Li Bai swept through the Daylight Army and swept clean Daylight City. His gains far exceeded anyone's imagination. But Screw was indifferent towards the riches from the start. He had placed all of his attention into testing and researching on the various materials. That's too crazy, Melissa exclaimed. Because of the MO family, he researched more on how to dig out the potential of ordinary materials and how to optimize the mechanical mechanisms to increase their performance while lowering their costs. He concluded many mature theories, and the MO family's mechanical spirit weapons became more and more famous in the past few years. The MO family's mechanical spirit weapons were never the best, but were at a relatively outstanding level. But the MO family's mechanical spirit weapons were always the best to use, the fastest to master, and the most cost-effective mechanical spirit weapons. I don't know. Johnson shook his head. That's all I know. Only the higher-ups know, and there is a saying that Temple already knows of that place and wants to conquer it. Not from the southern region? Melissa's eyes widened. Her face filled with shock. She only regained her senses after a moment. She spoke softly with an indescribable shock in her voice. Could it be the Gold Continent? As for whether or not the Southern Alliance would win, she had never considered it. Melissa suddenly thought about what Temple had said and revealed a look of shock. Don't tell me that when Temple said that the Southern expedition was aimed at the Southern Alliance, was that true? We don't have many rare materials right now. Most of the main body of the ship needs to be made from ordinary materials. I suggest using an embedded structure as the main body. This can greatly increase its strength, and then use loose building blocks to wrap the outer layer. In this way, if it is attacked, its loose structure can absorb a considerable amount of energy, and its main body will not be damaged. It's probably a kind of tradition, Johnson said uncertainly. They have the tradition of walking in the sea of energy. I think they want to use this method to train the soldiers' willpower. Temple's reason for the Southern expedition was that the Southern Alliance had offended the honorable Marshall Continent's benefits, but this was scoffed at by many people. Even the citizens of the honorable Marshall Continent thought that Temple's goal in the Southern expedition was to swallow the Southern region. If we were to say that the monster army's long-distance assault was already extremely tiring, then walking in the sea of energy was not just a problem of tiredness, but danger. The energy corrosion that was everywhere, and the hidden energy vortices that could appear at any time, even warships could not guarantee their safety. Sai Lei was a research maniac. When she first obtained the information of the Sacred Saint Galaxy's warships, she brought the mechanical laboratory to conduct an in-depth research. Her original intention was for the Southern Alliance to win in the future and to have the ability to obtain sufficient materials. She could directly produce warships in the Ursa Major constellation. In Heaven's Road, warships were definitely killing machines. With their terrifying offensive and defensive capabilities, it would make battles extremely simple. They galloped like thunder, wild, ferocious, crude, unstoppable, causing people to not hesitate. Anything that dared to appear in front of them would definitely be trampled to pieces. The Southern region is the Southern region. The Southern Alliance is the Southern Alliance. Johnson shook his head. You can see them. Do they look like people who are addicted to enjoyment? No. Johnson spoke softly and pointed to the sky. There's a saying going around, saying that they might have come from somewhere else. With that said, the monsters below suddenly increased their speed, as though they were fighting with their lives on the line. This spark is a little too much. It's good that, don't speak nonsense, Johnson said softly. The three of them quickly started to discuss again, but this time they did not argue with each other, and everyone's tone was calm and fast. His first-hand information was extremely precious. Run properly. This is what we do for training. Unless you guys still want to sit in the Null Division's warships in the future, otherwise, all of you better run properly. Melissa could not help but ask, aren't they afraid of dying? Melissa was startled. Training in the sea of energy? Didn't they say that the people of the Southern region are addicted to enjoyment and are extravagant? Melissa asked suspiciously. Macefield Tradings was ultimately a large-scale trading organization, and in the past they had many business partners in the Southern region. It was only because of the outbreak of war that all of these businesses were interrupted. The three mechanical Grandmaster engineers that were proficient in different fields clashed together, and the sparks of inspiration were unimaginable. He suddenly thought about the rumors regarding the Southern Alliance. and one of them mentioned that the Southern Alliance armies loved to train in the sea of energy, which was why the other powerhouses were unable to comprehend it. Warships aren't that scary, right? Melissa was dumbstruck. Silei looked at Tang Tian in surprise. At the moment, Tang Tian's face did not have the usual smile. His eyes were extremely gloomy. His entire body was releasing a powerful aura. His unquestionable tone made it hard for anyone to refute him. Tang Tian had no choice but to interrupt the three of them who were in a frenzy, and spoke with a rare, stern tone. Hey, pay attention to the time. Everyone, we don't have much time. You guys need to come up with a plan immediately. The longer you drag it out, the more disadvantageous it will be for us. Today, you guys need to come up with a plan, adding the time for repairs. Our time is extremely tight. The other armies of the Honorable Marshall Continent are most likely on their way. We don't have time. I don't need a perfect plan. I just need a feasible plan. Luckily for them, due to Tang Tian's return, Pai Pa had long predicted that there would be a huge movement. Thus, she had invited Grandmaster Mo Lung to Three Spirits City in advance, just in case. Initially, Grandmaster Mo Lung was not willing to put down his research, but under Pai Pa's emotional and logical persuasion, he still came to Three Spirits City. That's right, Tang Tian is right. If it was in the past, Johnson would definitely not divulge this information to anyone. Macefield Tradings had hired him, but that was all. But at the moment, everyone was on the same boat, and it was a boat that could not be abandoned. Just as Three Spirits City was discussing fervently, Zhongli Bai's monster army was traveling day and night, advancing towards Red Soil City. She quickly regained her composure. Yes, we need to seize the time. Leading the way was Melissa and Johnson. They sat on a transport boat and looked down at the group of monsters that were running frantically. To prevent their identities from being exposed, the transport ship was an old ship that could barely be used, and the two of them had disguised their appearances and voices. The Macefield Tradings that was hidden in the shadows was beneficial to Tang Tian's plan. Johnson also felt that it was inconceivable. He had seen many armies, but knew what kind of soldiers were like. All the ordinary armies relied on transport ships to set off, while some of the elite armies would occasionally train in this aspect. With the gathering of the three Grandmasters, Tang Tian was filled with confidence. Three Spirits City. Indeed, from what they had seen and heard in the past few days, they were definitely not people who indulged in enjoyment. They were dressed in plain clothes, and even Master Tang Tian did not seem to be outstanding. Compared to them, the aristocratic disciples of the Honorable Marshall Continent were much more luxurious. The mechanical army below, even the mechanical puppets, were extremely ugly. There were burrs everywhere. Without any paint, they looked like trash that was scooped out from a rubbish dump. Tang Tian brought Screw back to Three Spirits City and got Sai Lei and Mo Lung to stop all their work and face the Honorable Marshal's roar. Zhongli Bai's boorish roar could be heard from afar. Johnson looked down at the bronze flood that was running at full speed. He hesitated for a moment, then said softly, "They might not be from the southern region." This was what Tang Tian admired the most about Pai Pa. She always completed her task silently. Considering the Honorable Marshal's roar's future battle environment, being surrounded is the norm. We first need to strengthen its defenses. The strongest part of the Honorable Marshal's roar is its main body. We need to use it as much as possible, and the defense of the warship should revolve around it. Then we need to create some structures to guide the flow and form a barrier around the surface of the warship. Like that, other than the energy barrier, the Honorable Marshal's roar also has an internal barrier. With 2 layers of protection, its ability to survive will be very strong. She was in a daze. So it turns out that the crazy young man who often went crazy has already grown into an outstanding leader. When Sai Lei and Mo Lung saw the report, the two of them were so excited that they almost jumped up. Even Mo Lung, who was a cold person, was extremely excited. Sai Lei immediately grabbed his hair. He wished that he could enter the sacred Saint Galaxy immediately. Everyone were now comrades, and that was why Johnson dared to speak of such a terrifying rumor. But, seeing the three of them arguing with each other, their faces flushed red. Even Tang Tian, who was used to life and death, felt a chill down his spine. Yes. Johnson nodded his head, and it is from a very far distance. There were people who once saw a mysterious army appearing at the honorable Marshall Continent's Sea of Energy, and many people guessed that it might be an army from the Southern Alliance. The three of them spoke one after another, their speed extremely fast, a series of terms that Tang Tian did not understand, and only felt that they were powerful. The outline of Red Soil City appeared in the horizon. Johnson waved his hand. A terrifying tradition. Who knew? Chapter 845. Melissa was startled. She looked at the mountains of warehouses and could not help but say, "We can't move them all in 10 hours." Melissa thought that Zhong Li Bai was being humble and laughed. In the end, it was a victory. Their minds went blank. Rumble, rumble. Johnson was moved. When the Honorable Marshall Southern Expedition had just begun, the entire Honorable Marshall Continent was extremely optimistic, and the army was pumped up. In the initial phase of the war, it was truly so, be it the Southern region or the Southern Alliance. They all crumbled upon contact. But as the war progressed, although the Southern region organized their resistance, they were not much of a threat. And the newly formed Southern Alliance unexpectedly stabilized the situation, displaying astonishing tenacity. But Red Soil City surrendered. The yellow sand that was stirred up fluttered, and one after another, sinister bronze figures could be faintly seen. The Southern Alliance was truly extraordinary. Johnson's expression was similarly sluggish, his face pale white. Beneath the crude and tyrannical appearance, he was extremely shrewd. Zhong Li Bai shook his head. "There's nothing to congratulate me about." From Johnson's experience, none of the military generals that he had seen could do such a thing. After half a minute, the two of them regained their senses from the shock. The scene that had unfolded had completely surpassed their imagination. Despair and ash covered all of their faces. They had thought that the Gold Continent might come to Red Soil City, but they never expected it to be so fast. A fierce glint flashed past Zhong Li Bai's eyes. Melissa and Johnson, who were on the transport ship, were completely stunned. Their expressions were the same. Their mouths were wide open, their expressions frozen, their minds in a blank. In the next moment, screams of panic came out at the same time. The current monster army scale and fighting strength were more or less understood by the enemy. It was deathly silent, deathly pale. The wind blew the sand away. This battle, no, there was no battle, had completely toppled his impression of Zhong Li Bai. Previously, he did not have a good impression of Zhong Li Bai. He was crude and impulsive, tyrannical, with a trace of neurosis, causing people to be uneasy as they felt that he would do something out of line. Compared to him, the other military general, Nie Chio, had an extraordinary bearing. Regardless of the situation, he would always be calm and collected. The rumbling sounds from the ground awoke the slumbering citizens of Red Soil City. They all put on their clothes and flew into the sky. The monster battalion moved forward in an orderly manner, and they stirred up a cloud of dust that covered the sky. Every step of the heavy monsters was incomparably heavy. When more than 10,000 monsters landed on the ground at the same time, the earth trembled and the mountains shook. Even though they were very far away, every step he took was like a heavy drum beating in the hearts of the crowd. "Leave no one alive." Zhong Li Bai's tone was cold without a trace of warmth. "The corpses will be hung at the highest point in Red Soil City. Whoever dares to disobey my orders must be prepared to die." But personally witnessing it, even Melissa could not complain about Red Soil City's lack of willpower. But after a moment, he muttered to himself, "Psychological warfare." Zhong Li Bai did not care about bloodshed. He only felt that it was too inefficient. Upon seeing Zhong Li Bai, Melissa greeted, "Congratulations, General." That was the reason why Zhong Li Bai did not go and rob the citizens, and not because of some old and inflexible rule. Robbing the people's belongings was the property that they had painstakingly accumulated. There would definitely be many people who would risk their lives for it. Jason knew how wrong he was. When the deep bronze torrent stepped on the light of dawn and appeared at the end of the horizon, the entire Red Soil City became dead silent. Seeing the bustling scene, he was extremely satisfied. snatching the boats, snatching the craftsmen, snatching the materials. No one could maintain the willpower to resist in the face of such might. As a spectating comrade, Melissa herself was so shocked that her mind went blank. She could imagine how shocked the people in the sky above Red Soil City would be. He could tolerate his soldiers being bandits in the past, and could tolerate them being bandits now, as long as it was his orders. Johnson's face was filled with even more respect. General Zhong's strictness in managing the army was truly unimaginable. It was something that no one could have imagined, if not for personally witnessing it. In the past, Johnson did not think too much about it, but now that he was up close, he knew how powerful they were. They were the Gold Continent Bandits, the infamous Gold Continent Bandits that were like the sun in the sky. All of the willpower to resist, before it could even ignite, was swept away by the torrent. All of the hot blood that had not even cooled down was completely smashed into pieces. The Gold Continent Bandits are here. One after another, figures soared into the sky. In the blink of the eye, the sky was filled with densely packed people, all of their faces filled with panic. Johnson immediately pulled Melissa back. He knew that once Zhong Libai made a decision, he would not change it. Zhong Libai waved his hand and said coldly, "No, but this is an order. The enemy is definitely gathering their army and preparing to wipe us out. The army needs time to gather." Zhong Libai suddenly felt that what he was doing was no different from bandits, but he continued to urge his soldiers to increase their efficiency. When Melissa saw the corpses hanging high up, her face turned pale. She had never seen such a cold general, to be so cruel to his own men. Is he not afraid that his subordinates will rebel? Whoosh! Regardless of how one looked at it, he was not a good general who loved his soldiers as though they were his children. He knew himself well and was proud of it. They were not fast, but like a moving bronze forest, they slowly approached Red Soil City. Suddenly, Zhong Libai's wild roar exploded out like thunder in the dead silent sky. The dense killing intent that seemed to be leaking out caused everyone to feel as though they had entered a deep winter. They were unruffled and unruffled. Their heavy footsteps converged into a torrent, like a heavy hammer. Hammer after hammer smashed onto the hearts of the people in the sky above Red Soil City. All of the willpower and determination to resist under the hammer after hammer started to crack and spread until they crumbled. Zhong Libai suddenly said, "Every family in Red Soil City had their doors tightly shut. All of them hid behind their doors and trembled in fear." In the western region, when bandits broke into a city, killing and plundering was the norm. Even massacring the entire city was not strange. Are we surrendering or not? He had once been in an army and could naturally tell that Zhong Libai was using psychological warfare. But to be able to use psychological warfare to such an extent, Zhong Libai's standard was definitely not low. They were in the White Fields continent, the western region where bandits wreaked havoc, and any city's guards were not weak-willed people. The trading organizations in the city, with some wealth, would have hundreds of guards, all of them brave and skilled in battle. For a top-grade trading organization like the Western Traders, it was not strange for them to have more than 1,000 guards. Adding in the large and small mining groups, mercenary armies, the number of fighting men in Red Soil City far exceeded the monster army. The two of them were extremely familiar with Red Soil City, and with their guidance, they quickly found the inner treasury of Red Soil City, which included the large warehouses of the Western Traders. Zhong Libai and the rest had arrived too quickly and did not have the time to move the resources away. This period of time is my chance. They knew that Red Soil City's guards were weak. They had never thought that Red Soil City would be able to defend against the monster army, but they had never thought that the monster army would actually be able to take down Red Soil City without shedding any blood. Zhong Libai's face darkened. The 10 soldiers beside him were captured by his personal guards. All of them were crying and begging. Truly a terrifying military general. With that, he turned and left, leaving behind Melissa and Johnson, one in shock, the other in admiration. The bronze torrent brought along the flying yellow sand and suddenly stopped outside Red Soil City. Before they could react, An overwhelming killing intent surged out from the sky, causing the sky to change color, as though Red Soil City was about to be crushed into pieces in the next moment. All of the sinister monsters below the city walls stomped their feet at the same time, as though the ground had been struck fiercely, causing the dust on the city walls to fly up. Time seemed to have stopped at that moment. All of the guards and citizens who witnessed the scene all held their breaths, as though an invisible hand was strangling their throats, causing them to suffocate. Red Soil City surrendered. But, Melissa said anxiously, they were a group of true monsters. They were ferocious, brave, crazy, and when they formed an army with steel-like discipline, they would only bring despair and death. Zhong Libai brought his personal guards and patrolled the streets with killing intent. Every single one of them had their own uniqueness, and the master actually had so many talents under him, causing Johnson's heart to burn with passion, and he looked forward to the future. Move faster. We will retreat in 10 hours. You call this victory? Zhong Libai did not care. His face was filled with disdain and contempt. A group of trash. How can they be my opponents? All of you move faster. Don't waste time. As for the soldiers that were killed, it was not because they robbed the citizens, but because they disobeyed his orders. If we can't move them all, then we don't need them, Zhong Libai said resolutely. Are you going to surrender or not? Zhong Libai ignored the two of them. His eyes were fixated on the map, and he counted the time in his mind. He had an outstanding view of the big picture, and knew that before the Null Division formed their fighting strength, he had to shoulder the heavy responsibility of attracting the enemy's attention. One after another, the sinister monsters finally appeared in front of everyone. Red Soil City was in an uproar. Countless of people scurried around the city like headless flies, and those who were quick to react had already grabbed their bags and escaped through another city gate. The soldiers did not meet with any resistance, regardless of whether it was the government's treasury or the trading organization's warehouse. To the guards, since they did not belong to them, why would they risk their lives for them? 10,000 people roared in unison. Over 10,000 sound waves converged into a heart-trembling torrent, and with a buzzing sound, they slowly dissipated into the air. As for the future, they have to survive under my hands first. Gold Continent bandits. Zhong Libai, who came from the academy, was brimming with the aura of a bandit, but his strict adherence to discipline was instinctive. He only had one rule, and that was to obey his orders. He knew what kind of people his subordinates were. They were a group of true bandits, and the habits that they had developed over 10 years could not be easily changed. Chapter 846. He turned around and looked at the forest of bronze monsters around him, and a heroic spirit rose in his chest. It really made one's blood boil. More importantly, it was quite possible. Without knowing of his existence, the Honorable Martial Continent would never be able to guess their true intentions. Tang Tian didn't expect the situation to be so bad. What are your plans on your side? Screw wanted to come himself. Bing was quiet for a moment, then said, "That's good too. Regardless of life or death, the battlefield will forever be our home. Help me take care of him. Don't worry. There won't be any problems." Bing was confident in Screw. Remember our base? In the past, Screw was in charge of all these huge projects, and at that time, he was the #1 foreman of our army. Everything he built is still usable even after tens of thousands of years. Not being able to defend is a good thing. Uncle, is your brain fried? Tang Tian frowned. Tang Tian clenched his fist tightly. Victory! Zhong Libai watched from afar. The Null Division fleet was in charge of escorting them. The powerhouses in the Whitefields continent had been swept clean by him, and they did not need to worry about being robbed. Seeing that the Null Division fleet was flying steadily, he could not help but reveal a rare smile. "Can you defend your side?" Tang Tian asked worriedly. But after a few days, he was surprised to find that Screw's commands were orderly and rather experienced. The Whitefields continent's warship graveyard had already become a bustling construction site. The majestic Honorable Marshal's Roar's hull was packed with people. The craftsmen working on it looked like densely packed ants. The new battleship map immediately proved that Frank's worries were not unfounded. The The shape of the new battleship on the blueprint was extremely strange. It looked like it was made of a pile of foam, and he was even worried that it would fall off. Bing laughed and did not mind, such a sad fellow. No, it was still in its infancy. There was still a long way to go before it could become a true mighty force. In comparison, the bandits and mountain thieves under him were just a motley crew. Quite powerful, Tang Tian muttered. He had to admit, Bing's concept was outstanding. It seemed like these guys hadn't wasted any time recently. Frank's gaze stopped on Screw for a moment, feeling a little strange. According to his original plan, if he couldn't find a master shipbuilder, he would find a high-level shipbuilder to make up for it. He did not expect that the master would actually hand this project over to Screw, and he finally understood Screw's occupation, mechanical grandmaster. Oh, I forgot. With your intelligence, it's impossible for you to understand the mysteries here. Bing whistled again. In the past, we defended the Shan continent because it was the path to Heaven's Road and our path of retreat. But now, where's the key to our victory? Congratulations, young man. You will become the key to victory in this entire battlefield. The huge fleet was like a black flock of birds flying into the distance. When they occupy the Shan continent, the first thing they need to do is to defend it. I will leave a ruin for him, and then continue to harass and attack him. Gocheng Wendao was proficient in offense and not in defense, and was surrounded by enemies on all sides. To defend the Shan continent, the other two armies would definitely set up defenses around the Shan continent. The main focus of our attack is their supply line. As long as we cut off their supply lines, they will be under a lot of pressure. They were the soldiers that any general yearned for. I have confidence in Screw. Tang Tian swore, then added, anyways, I don't have any other choice. The empty space around Honorable Marshal's roar was filled with all sorts of materials. All of them were of different colors and emitted different light auras. These were the spoils of war that the monster army obtained in Daylight City. Tang Tian imitated Bing's whistle. It can't be. The only remaining famous general of the Southern Cross Army was actually beaten to the point that he did not even have the strength to retaliate, and now he doesn't even have the confidence to defend. If Tang Chon knew that the person he was trying so hard to catch up to was only at such a standard, he would definitely cry. Since you have become the key to victory, that means that we need to achieve two goals. One is time, but what time do we have to fight for? The time you need to move. And the other goal is to delay their reinforcements, which also means before you reach the heart of the Honorable Marshal continent, we need to delay them. Giving up the Shan continent is our goal. Bing replied, we must win. The road ahead was filled with thorns and dangers, but he treated it as a joy. The excitement of struggling between life and death made him addicted. To be in the enemy's hinterland, to destroy without restraint, to be like a wolf in the midst of the enemy's encirclement. That was the battle he wanted. That was the life he wanted. His tone changed and became serious. Gocheng Wendao has already gone crazy. Do you know how many of his subordinates have died recently? More than 60,000, but he did not even frown. The Honorable Marshal Continent's reinforcements are already on the way, with over 200,000 men. 200,000 cannon fodder. Adding a madman who does not care about his life, the defensive line is already at its limit. Bing's tone was extremely calm. Bing was as calm as ice, without a trace of emotion. Tang Tian was completely captivated by his battle plan. The monster army started to move. Move out, Bing whistled, and Tang Tian could imagine Bing puffing out smoke and being pleased with himself. But no matter how much he thought about it, how could a mechanical grandmaster engineer be proficient in such a huge project? Upon thinking about the battle plan, the fighting intent in his body was ignited. Like raging flames, it surged through his body. The low and powerful command was like the growl of an alpha wolf. Relax, relax. I'm not stupid enough to let him go to the front lines. Tang Tian said happily. He is building a warship, an ultimate army warship. Have you heard of the Honorable Marshal's roar? The Honorable Marshal Continent's first-generation ultimate army warship is only left with the hull, and we plan to make use of it. Without a Grandmaster shipbuilder, we can only let Screw make do. Bing's words stopped and became extremely serious. You must grasp the time. Every second that you have now is exchanged with the lives of others. But currently, he was no longer envious of Nietchio. The Null Division was still a powerful army, but his monster army was not inferior in any way. Watching a motley crew slowly transform into a valiant and ferocious army in his hands, the sense of accomplishment made him addicted. Bing was unmoved. At the moment, he was releasing a powerful aura and said, "For the sake of tricking the enemy, we will not give up so quickly. On the contrary, I've already ordered Little Crane to defend the line to the death, and even sent a large number of reinforcements. Not only that, we will retreat step by step and try our best to buy time for you. Your task is not light. After fighting with the three fellows from the Honorable Martial Continent, I realize that they are truly powerful. Although the Honorable Martial Continent only has Jaya left, he is definitely not easy to deal with. You must definitely not give him time to react. Jaya is good at defending. Once he decides to defend to the death, you will not be able to quickly end the battle, and the situation will become extremely disadvantageous to us. And, young lad, are mechanical grandmasters so powerful?" Bing did not linger on the question, and asked, "Zhong Libai should have made his move. His plan is not bad. It is just that he himself is in more danger. But he is rather crazy, and is suitable for such dirty and tiring work. Speaking of which, we have to thank the Leo constellation for sending us two great generals." Bing suddenly chuckled. "They will definitely consider this problem. For example, they will definitely bring a lot of supplies this time. The Shan continent is far from the Honorable Martial Continent, and to ensure a long supply line, their strength will be greatly dispersed. And to ensure the safety of the supply line, they will transfer armies from the Honorable Martial Continent over. Like that, the Honorable Martial Continent will become even more empty, and it will be easier for you to succeed. And we just need to concentrate our strength and cut off their supply line. The supply line is not our true goal. Our true goal is to delay their steps of reinforcements and create an opportunity for you to deal the fatal blow." "What kind of strange ship is that?" He was dumbstruck. "After the victory or defeat is decided by you, our battle plans will revolve around you, and defending the Shan continent is no longer necessary. That is the entrance to the Blue Sea, and they will not be able to find it in a short period of time. Furthermore, we have Barbara and the rest of the Awakened armies, and have the absolute advantage in the Blue Sea. Even if we are unable to stop the army, it is not a problem to interfere with their scouting. That also means, in a short period of time, even if Go Cheng Wendao takes over the Shan continent, he will not be able to go to Heaven's Road. To be able to obtain the title of Grandmaster in any field, everyone would respect him, and mechanical Grandmaster engineers were no exception. But for a mechanical Grandmaster engineer to become a shipbuilder, forget about Franks, he had never even heard of such a thing. It was not only in terms of technology, but also in terms of engineering. How big were mechanical puppets? And one or even a few people were enough. But no matter how small a warship was, it required a team to work together to complete it. And for an ultimate army warship like the Honorable Marshal's Roar, it required 10 or even 100 teams to work together to be able to complete it, and that was a harsh requirement for the shipbuilder. I know that. Tang Tian did not understand it. In the past, he was extremely envious of Nietchio, who led the Null Division. The quality of the Null Division members were too good. They had powerful individual strength, steel-like willpower and discipline, absolute obedience. Han Bingning and the rest were all outstanding individuals who could take charge. Tang Tian's entire body trembled. His killing intent became denser. The light in his eyes blossomed. His expression became serious. Without the usual playfulness, he nodded his head and said, "I will. All right, as long as I can fly. It is fine." He could only comfort himself. Franks was extremely suspicious. He was in charge of arranging the materials, and his understanding of the project was definitely not limited to the surface. Ignoring the standard of the warship's construction, Screw's ability to arrange was definitely someone who had handled large projects before. Bing thought for a moment, then said, "It's dangerous." Bing laughed happily. "Don't you think that it is a good thing for us? When Tang Tian and Screw brought back a pile of blueprints, he was still feeling apprehensive. It was not that he did not trust Tang Tian, but he knew how difficult it was to build an ultimate army warship like the Honorable Marshal's Roar. Although they did not need to consider the most difficult part of the warship, but even the construction of the other parts were not easy. Zhong Libai was filled with confidence. Tang Tian was currently communicating with Bing.